Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto married Hinata and became a Hyuuga clan prince part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. It seems the snake is making his move. That doesn't surprise me, gather the others. I want to make sure he doesn't intrude on our lands. Troublesome, but I'm on it. The sounds of battle were everywhere. The young Hyuuga waited safely and well hidden from view, hoping against hope that the signal would never happen as he waited frantically nearby. His thoughts drifted back to earlier when he was summoned to see his uncle and guardian since his father's death. Flashback. Neji quickly approached his uncle's office, seeing many of the Hyuuga guards getting ready for the impending battle that lay ahead. Neji had suited up in the traditional Hyuuga armor, ready to fight by his uncle's side. Like all the branch members of the Hyuuga, who fight to protect the main branch as they had for many years. Hyuuga stood taking his last look at the battle plans that had been devised within such a short amount of time. Already dressed in his battle gear, he noticed his nephew. Immediately seeing that his nephew was growing to look more like his twin brother Hisashi each day. "My lord, you summoned me?" Neji bowed in greeting. "Neji, you will not accompany me into battle," Hyuuga stated calmly. "What? But, my lord." "Please, Neji, that is my order and I will not change it," Hyuuga thundered. Neji clenched his fists tightly, but relented, keeping his head down as he was still knelt before his uncle. "Neji, please stand up for me, would you?" Hyuuga stated softly. Neji looked up at his uncle and immediately stood up, looking at his uncle that reminded him so much of his late father. "Neji, you do know who we as a clan are up against? I very much doubt we will win this battle. I want you to stay behind and await my signal. If that happens, I need you to take Hinata and escape. Both of you are precious to me, Hinata my daughter, and you, my brother's son," Hyuuga stated with a small smile as Neji looked unsurprised. "Please, Neji, I am trusting you to take Hinata with you, and you are to journey to the next human village in Wind Country. You must disguise yourselves, do you understand?" "Yes, uncle, I will obey your wishes." "Thank you, Neji. I want both of you to survive and find safety. I have made sure provisions are ready for you in the secret escape route. I have instructed Code to ensure both of you escape safely." Neji nodded his head as his uncle pulled him to him. Neji looked, seeing his uncle looking at him. One of the man's hands were on each of his shoulders, a small smile was showing upon his lips. Neji was shocked at the show of emotion that had now adorned his uncle's normally stoic face. "You have grown into a fine young man, Neji. I know your father would be as proud as I am. I want you to look after Hinata for me, as I haven't been the father that I should have been. Stay safe and hidden, Neji. Ko is guarding Hinata and will be awaiting you as to my instructions. If I should fall in battle, I will send one of my small bird summons. If that happens, I will instruct it to seek you out." Neji once more nodded his head in agreement, feeling all sorts of emotions from anger, fear and sadness at what was happening. "My lord, it is time," one of the Hyuuga guards announced as he burst into the room. "I will be there shortly," Hyuuga commanded. The guard left as quickly as he arrived, as Neji kept his gaze upon his uncle, who gathered his weapons and attached them to his body. "Protect my daughter for me, Neji. Your journey will be treacherous, seeing as we were the last human village within Fire Country." "Who is this snake attacking us, and why, uncle?" "The demon snake Orochimaru. He is after the secrets of our clan and bloodline." "But what of Dash?" "Being destroyed as we speak, apart from the few scrolls that I have stored within a storage seal, along with money that you will need, that I will now give to you, Neji." Hyuuga did a few hand signals, placing a large storage scroll within his hands. "You can store many things inside it. You know the hand seals, don't you?" "Yes, of course." "I leave this with you. Take care, Neji, and thank you for all you have done." Neji bowed his head as he watched his uncle, who looked so much like his late father, disappear from his view and head into battle. Neji hoped that his uncle would return safely, but judging from his uncle's words, it seems his uncle had resigned himself to his fate. Facing death in battle was a great honor for any clan leader. End of flashback. Neji kept glancing around nervously. The sounds of battle outside the gates were haunting. Many of the villagers were seeking refuge, or trying to leave as the battle grew closer. Within the next few minutes, his heart clenched as a small white bird flew towards him, circling once, then disappearing in a small white cloud of smoke, signaling that his uncle had fallen, and now it was down to him to ensure he and his cousin escaped the slaughter that lay ahead. Hinata had been pacing her room in worry as Ko stood outside her closed door. The sounds of battle were clearly heard in the distance that made her heart clench at the unnecessary bloodshed of her people that fought to protect their home village. Ko had entered inside her room earlier, having placed male servant clothes within her arms, instructing her to dress quickly and not to ask questions. Hinata nervously removed her deep purple silk kimono and hurriedly dressed in the baggy servant robes. She quickly braided her long indigo hair after removing the many hair ornaments that had been specifically placed that she deeply hated. Once she was fully dressed, just placing the servant's sandals upon her feet, she glanced at herself in the mirror, noticing how different she looked. Her door burst wide open, revealing a nervous Ko who looked upon her in concern, which made Hinata look on nervously for news, feeling nothing but fear and dread. "We must leave now, Hinata-sama," Ko announced as calmly as he could. What? "Please, Hinata-sama, no questions, we must escape now," Ko ordered firmly. Hinata was stunned speechless as she blinked at the order. Nervously, she glanced around her room, her eyes widening in horror at seeing fires and smoke along with cries and shouts of despair outside. Her thoughts were broken as Ko grabbed her and pulled her out of her room, guiding her down the long, elegant hallways. Using his eyes, he made certain no one saw them as they got to their destination within the compound. Ko finally breathed a slight sigh of relief, seeing Niji nervously awaiting them. Their eyes met, each of them apart from Hinata knew the circumstances of why they were here. "Niji-sama, I trust you have everything?" "Yes, Ko, Lord Hayashi told me his wishes. I am presuming you're ready, as I gather we don't have much time." "You're right, we had better go." What is going on, Nisan?" "Hinata-sama, your father has fallen in battle. He has left you in my hands from now on, and right now we need to escape before we get caught by the enemy," Niji stated calmly. Hinata felt her heart break at hearing her cousin's words. Although she was never close to her father, she still loved him dearly. Her cousin and Ko were now all she seemed to have left as she fought back the tears, nodding her agreement, trying to rein in how scared she was. "We had better go. I can see the enemy about to enter." "Shit! Let's hurry." All three ran down another corridor, then down some steps leading to the basement, locking the large firm door behind them. Ko carefully moved some barrels containing expensive wines that hid another door that he quickly unlocked with a key he held in his hands. "Niji-sama, Hinata-sama, quickly, this way," Ko whispered loudly. Hinata was pulled inside by Niji, who had lit a torch as Ko closed and locked the door behind them, quickly making their way down the narrow corridor that seemed to go on for miles, hoping and praying it hadn't yet been discovered by the enemy. The silence was deafening as their footsteps echoed around them, making their shadows dancing along the walls that flickered with the flames from the torch Niji was carrying. Niji saw the end of the corridor and signaled Ko to help move what seemed to be a large boulder that was wedged tight. The distant echoes alerted them that their village, their home, was now overrun with the enemy and time was of the essence. Niji and Ko managed to move the boulder as they each stepped outside, immediately noticing that it had now grown dark. Both Niji and Ko placed the boulder back, knowing that they didn't have much time and needed to move. Niji noticed two horses that were there ready for them. Niji felt his emotions surface. His uncle had most probably envisioned what would happen and had this all prepared and ready for them. Niji grabbed Hinata by the hand and began to approach one of the horses, lifting Hinata upon it as he also climbed after making sure she was in front of him. Ko had already mounted the other horse, ready for Niji to take the lead as he held the rear. "Let's go, we need to get as far away as possible before we are found by the enemy," Ko stated, breaking Niji from his thoughts. "Agreed, from here on out keep your bloodline active," Niji instructed as Ko nodded his agreement. Both of horses began to gallop away, heading north, knowing that now they would be open targets for the many demons that ruled most of the lands outside of the human village they had known most of their lives. What was left of their village now lay in ruins amongst the dying flames of fire and rich black smoke. That was once a happy human village to those that called it their home. The distant smells of smoke stirred within each demon's senses, each glancing at the direction it was coming from. Their spies had informed them that Orochimaru had taken an interest in the only human village left within Fire Country. The smell of smoke confirmed that the last human village had fallen to the demon snake, and they wondered why he attacked it in the first place. The small group of 5 had waited on the sidelines, knowing that trespassers could enter their lands. "Naruto, your orders?" Shikamaru questioned. "Use your shadows and scout up ahead, report back what you find. The rest of you, remain here," the blonde ordered, staring in one direction. Shikamaru nodded as he disappeared within his shadows, leaving the rest to stand around and await further instructions as each of their eyes glowed amongst their surroundings. Niji glanced at his cousin, seeing the tears flow freely from her lilac-tinted eyes. From here on out it was just them, and she was the only one who didn't bear the curse seal that all branch members of the Hyuuga clan had upon their foreheads. He knew many dangers lay ahead for them now, especially knowing that now they were in demon territories. Hinata-sama, I know you are upset, but you must remain strong. We are nowhere near safe, and you are the only remaining Hyuga that is unsealed. Hinata listened to her cousin, knowing that he was in fact right. She was now the last of the main branch, and subconsciously shivered at knowing what happens if any of the main branch Hyuga were to fail to elude capture for their eyes. Here, take this and make sure to wrap it around your forehead, Niji continued, handing her a roll of bandages. Hinata took it as she quickly unwound them and wrapped them carefully around her forehead. Niji also gave her a hooded cloak to keep her warm from the impending cold winds from the north. The seasons were changing. As autumn was approaching, the long summer nights would now slowly disappear as the winds would pick up, especially on their perilous journey to one of the handfuls of human villages left in their world. Orochimaru was a snake demon who was obsessed with immortality and experiments that he loved to do, upon not only humans but his own demon brethren themselves. He had many slaves that served him in fear both of human and demon descent. Niji had heard many stories that passed through their small home village of that slippery snake, and what he had done. Niji gritted his teeth, his anger raging inside of him that he, Ko, and his cousin were now running for their very lives. He wondered how this journey would play out now that they had been traveling for an hour nonstop so far. They had not encountered any dangers, but he knew it wouldn't be long until they did. They were now well within the lands that were ruled by various demons. He had heard that the Kyuubi Lord ruled somewhere here. He had his own lands that he ruled amongst other demon clans that stood by his side, and he shivered at what would happen if they encountered him and his demon brethren. He had heard that the Kyuubi was not only powerful but had a certain dislike for humans, and never sought them out. Niji-sama, we are being pursued, Ko stated in a hushed tone. Shit! How long till we encounter them? About a mile. It seems they picked up our trail and they seem to be gaining on us, so I presume it won't be long until they are upon us, Ko answered, awaiting further instructions. Niji was panicking inside, cursing his uncle inwardly for having placed such a burden on his shoulders and knowing they were now sitting ducks in unexplored terrain that was not resided by their own kind. Niji-sama, take care of Hinata-sama, Ko whispered softly. Niji's eyes widened as he turned hastily to face the man he has known since he was young, who cared for his cousin as though she was his own. Ko! And no, please don't leave, Hinata pleaded with a pained cry. Niji-sama, please look after her in my absence, and keep her safe. Niji felt conflicted, but seeing the man's eyes harden with his own resolve, he knew he couldn't talk the man out of it, even knowing it would lead to his death. He felt his cousin struggle within his arms, feeling his own arm keeping hold of her tightly against him. The beauty tried desperately to get to her guardian to beg and reason with him not to be so foolish. Niji gritted his teeth as he felt her nails dig into his skin as she fought hard for release, leaving him no other alternative but to press a pressure point, rendering her unconscious, feeling immense guilt at doing so. Ko, you know you don't have to do this, Niji reasoned, letting his emotions finally show. Ko stared at him, a rare smile adorned his face as he glanced to the now sleeping princess that he had taken care of since she was just a toddler. I know, but it's the only way, and time is not on our side, I'm afraid. You don't have much time, but hopefully I can give you more if I can hold them off long enough. Ko, if you manage to follow and catch us up, Niji stated, holding back his own tears. I will if I don't, however, tell Hinata-sama that I gladly died to protect her and her future, Ko stated, hiding his falling tears from Niji. I will, but I hope that's not going to happen, Niji answered solemnly. Ko chuckled, knowing that Niji couldn't bring himself to say goodbye to him. He watched him signal the horse to gallop off into the distance, knowing that this would be the last time he saw both the princess of the Hyuuga clan and the prodigious nephew who would hopefully protect their clan in future in his place. Ko turned away, wiping his falling tears as he prepared to face their pursuers, knowing his own death would certainly be the outcome. The group of demons awaited further instructions from their leader, knowing that their terrain was now being invaded by not only humans but Orochimaru's forces as well. Shikamaru stood watching his blonde leader, knowing that he was raging at what he had just reported. Well? Shikamaru bravely asked, knowing that an order needed to be given now for them to act upon it. Fuck. How dare they trespass on our lands? How many are there again, Shika? The blonde questioned again, his eyes a deep red. 3 humans and 6 followers of the snakes, Shikamaru answered in a bored tone. TCH, well, what do you want us to do, do? Sasuke finally snapped, hating to be kept waiting, knowing that Orochimaru's lackeys had the audacity to breach their lands without a care. Fine. Shikamaru, take 10-10 and round up the humans, and bring them back to base for questioning. Do not let them escape. If they give you trouble, disable them, but don't kill them. Shikamaru nodded his head as he signaled 10-10 to accompany him in getting the 2 humans. The blonde sighed, reining in his anger as much as he could, but knowing it was futile, as he nodded to Sasuke and Sakura to follow him to encounter the snake's lackeys, knowing blood would spill soon. The Kyuubi within him was chuckling at being able to release his claws upon the demon filth that served the treacherous snake Orochimaru. Come on, let's go, the blonde hissed, disappearing in a flash as the other two followed suit. The last raspy breath of life was finally relinquished as the demon released the noble Hyuuga. Another smirked, watching the man's blood spill like water onto the ground that was now his resting place. Shall we proceed, Kabuto? Of course, since he didn't cooperate with us. Such a pity that these damn noble Hyugas would rather die than be ruled and subdued for our master. Whatever, I don't give a fuck. Don't you think we are wasting our time chasing these pussies? A female demon hissed, her long, pink-tinted hair flowing. Now, Tayuya, you were present when Lord Orochimaru gave us our orders. TCH, well, let's fucking get going then, she retorted. Kabuto grinned, getting ready to direct Hyuuga and a handful of hybrid slaves to venture forth, knowing they themselves didn't have the time to mess around, knowing they were now in Lord Kyuubi's demon lands, which was unfortunate. Alright, be on your gua. The demon Kabuto was cut off when the ground he stood on began to rumble loudly as it moved, causing him to stumble slightly as he regained his instincts, making sure to get somewhere safe to see what was going on. 3 of the demon hybrids perished within the mass of dirt and earth, suffocating them deep beneath. There his demon snake eyes saw flowing strands of candy pink hair, the color of sakura flowers that graced the many trees in season. Emerald green eyes glowed as she released her clenched fist from upon the only stable ground that remained, whereas destruction was all around them. Sakura Haruno from the Haruno clan, I presume, Kabuto announced, his voice sickeningly sweet. You're trespassing, Snake, Sakura hissed, her emerald green eyes flared with anger. Kabuto raised his glasses as he took the pink-haired demon in. She was indeed beautiful, wearing a red outfit that clung to her curves. Her shoulder-length candy pink hair flowed with the breeze as she clenched her gloved fist. Her forehead was slightly larger than normal, but there was a small diamond shape present upon it. No need to be rude, my dear, we were searching for some prisoners that escaped from my lord, Kabuto reasoned. The sound of crackling could be heard a short distance behind him that made him, Tayuya, and the remaining hybrid to look behind. There stood another demon with dark raven hair, red eyes with black tomos spinning dangerously, who was looking at them. His hand were crackling with blue-colored lightning in warning. Kabuto swallowed nervously, recognizing those eyes immediately. It was the legendary Sharingan from the Uchiha clan. Sasuke Uchiha, Kabuto whispered. HN bullshit. Don't you mean you're trying to recover any survivors from the human village your master decided to destroy? Sasuke sneered. Kabuto clenched his fists in fury, knowing that his lie had been seen through, and their real intentions were known. A flash of yellow appeared before them. The sudden surge of killing intent made each of them tremble as the blonde lord glared at them where they each stood. Why you? How dare you step on my lands for your slimy bastard of a master? Naruto hissed, his eyes flashing dangerously, ready to kill at any moment. Kabuto stood his ground as Tayuya remained motionless, feeling the power of each of the 3 demons before her, knowing that without her own team present, they was seriously outnumbered. Kabuto decided that a retreat was in order, even though he knew his lord wouldn't be happy. Naruto watched as all 3 disappeared in a plume of smoke, his anger still boiling at the audacity of them trespassing his lands. He growled in distaste at their retreat, but was glad they had left his presence as his anger began to slowly dissipate. What now? Sasuke asked. Let's head back to base, Naruto answered with a sigh. Sasuke glanced towards Sakura, seeing her looking at the now dead body of one of the presumed humans that they had been chasing. Sakura. It seems he was beaten severely. He has a lot of internal bleeding. Why kill him slowly? Naruto questioned, crouching down beside her looking at the dead body. That's what I want to know, Sakura sighed, opening one of the eyelids. Sasuke stared at the body and took interest at the pupilless eyes that were silver but faded due to death. Hyuuga, Sasuke stated. What? Naruto asked, confused. He means that this man was obviously a member of the Hyuuga clan, dummy, Sakura answered. They are one of the oldest and most noble clans in the human line, so I wouldn't be that surprised if that was why that village was attacked by the snake, especially considering his obsession with experiments for power, Sasuke added. So, we have 2 humans within my land that may be from the Hyuuga clan? Let's hope Shikamaru and Tenten find them and take them to base so I can see them myself, Naruto stated calmly. What will you do? Kill them? Sakura questioned. I may. It depends on what we find out when I see them, Naruto answered. Sasuke and Sakura glanced at each other, knowing that either way both humans would have it rough and they would wish that they never stepped foot within their lands, especially since Naruto hated humans. The cool night air brushed against the many trees that was slowly changing colors due to the changing seasons. The sounds of nature had gone eerily quiet. Shikamaru and Nara sighed knowing that their presence wouldn't be hidden for too long. He stretched out his shadows as he watched them slowly envelop the surroundings, covering them in darkness. Shikamaru had finally managed to locate where the two remaining humans were. The other was nowhere near, and he presumed with his high intellect that the third had sacrificed himself for the two that remained on the run. Signaling Tenten, they both sped up, managing to gain up on them quicker than anticipated considering they was both on horseback. But as Shikamaru glanced at the gray horse, he could see it was near exhaustion and was slowing down tremendously. The two humans were on the one horse, one seemed to be sleeping, the other was fully awake and by the looks of things, knew that they were being followed. Bringing the horse to a complete standstill, Neji glanced behind him, his eyes narrowed as he picked up on two presences up within the trees not too far away. Hinata began to stir within his arms as he chanced a glance back down at her, seeing her eyes beginning to flutter open. "Hinata-sama, you must get ready to make a run for it," Neji whispered. Hinata opened her eyes, immediately remembering everything that had took place, from her home being overrun, her father being killed, and then her guardian co-sacrificing himself to let them escape, made her heart break into tiny pieces. Tears flowed from her pale lilac eyes, falling down her pale cheeks and onto the arms holding her tightly against him. Neji felt each drop of her tears fall against the sleeve of his arm. He hated seeing his cousin so distraught, and knew he hadn't the luxury to comfort her, and let out his own grievances. "Get a hold of yourself, Hinata-sama, we are not safe and we are currently situated within demon lands. You may have to run and find somewhere safe. Try to keep yourself hidden, especially now that you are the princess of our clan," Neji silently continued. "I can't lose you too, Nai-san," Hinata whimpered softly, tears continuously falling. "You must survive, Hinata, I will try to find you, but you must find a human settlement that will take you in." But "Please, Hinata-sama, do as I ask," Neji stated firmly. Hinata flinched at his whispered tone, feeling the urgency within it, and nodded silently, knowing she couldn't argue with him any further. She felt him sigh, holding her closer to him, her heart clenched even more at the thought of going on without him, and alone. "I will keep them busy, remain on the horse and use it to escape. With just you riding him, as you are lighter than myself, you should hopefully be able to outrun our pursuers," Neji ordered above a whisper to her ears. "Hi," Hinata answered. Neji sighed, not wanting to leave his cousin to herself, but he had no choice. It was just them in unknown lands that were ruled by demons. Some of them were powerful demon lords and ladies. They were considered the 9 great demons, all of them powerful. The strongest of them all was the demon lord Kyubi of the 9-tailed fox. Neji had heard many stories of various demons, and knew that humans like himself were no match for them. Even the Hyuuga clan knew they was no match for the demon race, but made sure not to anger them and gain their wrath. They kept to themselves throughout the years, making sure they never angered the demon clans that were allied with him. He remembered his uncle had told him that the demons had fought a war against one another, and it had divided the many demon clans against one another. Neji knew that the losses were great, and that some humans were also involved in the war. His uncle had confided that they had been asked to enter the war but had decided against it. They did, however, send aid such as supplies of medicine, food and water to their closest demon neighbors in fear of angering them further. The Hyuuga clan just wanted to live peacefully within their village, but now nothing remained. It was now destroyed by the very demons themselves. "Get ready for my signal and don't you dare stop or look back," Neji commanded as he removed himself from the horse, making sure Hinata held the reins tightly in her hands. Shikamaru glanced over at Tenten, who had her eyes locked on the human who was now standing facing their direction. Shikamaru sighed, seeing the familiar excitement course through her features, and knew that the Hyuuga held eyes that was almost akin to the Uchiha clan's own. From what he had gathered, they had the all-seeing eyes that could see through walls and see chakra through someone's body. Shikamaru knew by the serious look in the man's eye that he was completely aware that they were present, and could feel his eyes on them. "He's mine," Shika Tenten purred, smiling devilishly at him, which made him raise his eyebrow at her. Tenten was different from the rest of them. She was a renowned demon huntress, a carrier of many magnificent weapons that she had at her disposal. One flick from her wrists would produce scroll after scroll that would produce many different arrays of weapons of various shapes and sizes. Her calm demeanor put anyone on edge that had to face her. She felt no fear and took pleasure in battle. The demon huntress, Tenten, was the only human his leader valued and listened to, and Tenten was most loyal to him and would protect him with her own life if need be. Shikamaru nodded his head in agreement, deciding to hold back within his shadows, watching the human on the horse that still had his back to him. Shikamaru was a shadow demon, which was typical of his clan. His father died in the last demon wars, as did many of his clan. Naruto took him in along with others. They were all family and protected one another and their lands from invaders. Tenten jumped down to the ground a few feet away from the man that watched her intently, His long brown hair and handsome face intrigued her, especially those pale silver eyes that contained no pupil. Niji watched as a figure dropped from the trees. His eyes took in the form, seeing clearly it was a woman in a form-fitting outfit that showed each curve she possessed. He was stunned slightly at how beautiful she looked, but knew he had to be very wary of this woman. She may be beautiful, but she also looked deadly. "Surrender now or be taken by force," Hyuuga Tenten called out. "Never, I would rather die than be taken to your master of a snake," Niji hissed, feeling his fists clench tightly, readying himself for the fight of his life. Tenten began to smirk as her chakra flared, letting him know she was no pushover even if she was still a human. Niji still had his bloodline activated, seeing her power flare up making him shocked, deep down knowing she would be a very tough opponent to fight against, even if by his own eyes that she was in fact a human. Niji had to admit he was very surprised. He had thought her at first glance to be a demon. His eyes briefly took in the other figure, a male and definitely not human. His dark hair was long and put up into a high ponytail. It reminded him of a pineapple fruit. His dark eyes were watching Niji's every movement. He had a tattoo on the side of his face, mostly in black signs. He stood staring but looked lazy, as if he couldn't care less. He had a black form-fitting shirt under a long white shirt fully open, along with black trousers that came to just below his knees. His ears both had ear piercings. Niji looked back at the female, and she was wearing a black bodysuit with brown amulets upon each arm that reached below her elbows. On her feet were long brown open-toe boots that came to below her knees. Her dark brown hair tied neatly in buns on either side of her head. Her eyes matched the color of her hair, and her lips was the color of deep red. He could feel her excitement radiate from her, causing him to swallow, knowing that it would be a tough fight up ahead. The woman was indeed beautiful and radiated confidence and love, a battle that intrigued Niji further, but he knew he had to win this no matter what. He couldn't leave his cousin alone in this world at the mercy of the demons around them. Shikamaru remained silent, his eyes glancing to the impending fight between the two and the other human mounted on the horse that had not moved since Tenten appeared. Suddenly the man quickly did something, and he watched as the horse began to gallop away, carrying the other human, escaping from the scene. Troublesome, he sighed out, deciding he had work to do after all. "She could get your lazy demon ass moving. I will handle this one, now get going," Tenten shouted. Niji watched as something akin to shadows disappeared, knowing now he couldn't do anything to help, and prayed to every deity that his dear cousin would be able to escape and, better yet, survive this madness they had both found themselves in. "Are you ready to fight, Hyuuga?" Tenten purred, causing Niji to regain his senses, ready to fight. "Don't mock me," Niji warned, getting ready for whatever was coming his way. A sly smile graced her red lips as she twirled around like a dancer in perfect formation. Her arms raised above her head as she spun with speed and precision. Niji could only watch, transfixed by the beautiful female, feeling his cheeks grow warm at the sight. Her body moved very suggestively, in a way that seemed to want to hypnotize him, that he bit his lips so that he could break from the bewitching spell her body seemed to seduce him with. A few puffs of smoke surrounded her, showing two long scrolls that she held in both her hands. With flick of her wrists the scrolls unraveled, revealing weapons that looked long and very sharp in both hands. The blades glistened through the darkness, each had a distinctive curve with delicate and intriguing patterns upon them. "May I know your name, Hyuuga?" Tenten asked politely. Niji raised an eyebrow and decided he also wanted to know her name. "As long as you will permit me your name also?" "Hyuuga Niji is my name," Niji answered calmly. Tenten nodded, her smile grew as she spoke to inform him who she was. "I am Demon Huntress Tenten," she answered. Niji gasped hearing her answer. He had heard about her from many talks from the villagers and the rare visits from visitors who had safely traveled to their village on rare occasions. He now knew that this fight wouldn't be easy as he predicted. However, he also knew he had no choice but to fight. Naruto had arrived back at his home. It was a large building, more like a fortress surrounded by the large, dense forests. He had entered his throne room and was greeted by those that stood beside him in the conflict of war, and those that had come to him for sanctuary. Never had Naruto turned someone of his kind away, even letting Tenten to remain within his kingdom. Naruto sighed as he sat down in his throne, looking over the large hall where members of his growing family stood, waiting for any orders or information. Sasuke and Sakura stood to one side, Kakashi stood on the other as their blonde lord looked around the room, noticing immediately that two of his subjects were not present. His blue eyes flickered red, expecting to see both Shikamaru and Tenten with two human prisoners ready to be interrogated. Naruto sighed his frustration as he glanced at Sasuke, who was conveniently now leaning lazily against the wall. "They should be back by now," Naruto growled out. No one answered as Naruto had his hands clenched into fists. Patience was not one of his best traits as a leader. Naruto immediately stood up from his throne, descending the few steps as his friends and comrades watched, awaiting instructions. Sasuke, you're with me. Sakura, remain here with Ino and have the sick bay ready in case it's needed. Kakashi, I need you to take Shino, Kiba, Sai and Choji to patrol our lands and keep me informed in case we have any further unwelcome visitors courtesy of the bastard snake. Everyone nodded as they went off to do their given commands as Naruto headed outside with Sasuke following close behind him. Naruto closed his eyes as he let his power consume him, pinpointing where his two subjects were. Found her, Naruto announced, grabbing hold of Sasuke's arm. He teleported them away in a flash of red and yellow light. Neji was feeling exhaustion setting in as he took notice of the vast array of weapons lying around where he stood. His clan's rotation that he had just mastered had managed to protect him from the vast flurry of sharp objects that were deadly accurate and precise against him. They had been fighting each other for a good while, seeing the destruction their fight was leaving in their wake. Tenten had to admit that each of her array of weapons that she had used against him were rebounded back as a vortex of blue chakra enveloped him like a spinning blue tornado of wind that managed to shield him from her weapons. Hand-to-hand combat had also been used, and she herself was impressed by the handsome man at being able to keep up with her speed and power. She was no pushover, and the male Hyuga had found that out all too quickly, much to his own surprise. You are quite formidable, Neji panted out. The brunette stood slightly panting herself at the slight praise of her skills and had to admit this Hyuga was formidable as well as handsome. But she had played with the Hyuga long enough and decided that this little battle of theirs should end. Tenten licked her plump red lips, carefully sizing up the male Hyuga as she finally decided that he would be hers. Before Neji could even blink, he found her no longer in front of him, but behind him, pressing a sharp weapon to his neck as her breath tickled against his skin. Surrender, Hyuga Neji, you are now mine. Neji felt his heart rate quicken as his body shivered from her own body that was closely touching his. Neji knew if he died now he couldn't find Hinata later, and relented as he felt darkness surround him. Tenten had rendered him unconscious as soon as he nodded in surrender. A flash of red and yellow appeared in front of her as Naruto as well as Sasuke stood before her, seeing the array of weapons and the damage done to the woodland around them. Sasuke took a step forward, seeing the beautiful demon huntress beside the unconscious male. I see you wanted to play with him, Tenny, Sasuke stated with a smirk. Yes, I did, and I must say that he was very interesting, Sasuke-kun, Tenten purred in delight as the raven rolled his eyes. My lord, seeing as I won against him in combat, I ask for your permission if I can have him as my pet? Tenten continued, bowing before the blonde as Sasuke felt his eyes widen in surprise. I don't see why not. You have been a loyal servant to me, Tenten, demon huntress of the land of fire. You may have this one as a pet if you so wish, but he still needs to be interrogated by me, Naruto answered. Tenten bowed as she agreed to her lord's order. She couldn't wait to take the Hyuga male back to her lair and have further fun with him. She was growing quite wet in between her legs at just the very thought of riding him in the privacy of her room. She was fed up of being one of the few without having some sort of sexual release. You look flushed, Tenny. Was he that good? Sasuke remarked, seeing lust in her dark brown eyes. He was everything I thought he would be and more. Besides, I can't wait to sample him further. I'm fed up of hearing you and Sakura fucking every night, Tenten remarked with a smirk. Sasuke grinned slightly, seeing the beautiful demon huntress growing aroused, and he felt slightly jealous. He was always wondering what the female temptress would be like beneath the sheets, but he knew Sakura would kill him if he tried to find out. Where is Shikamaru and the other human? Naruto ordered, rolling his eyes at the other two. Shikamaru chased after the other on horseback, my lord, Tenten replied. Sasuke, accompany Tenten back to base with the prisoner. I've located Shikamaru. I will see you back there, so I leave you in charge in my absence, Naruto ordered. Both Sasuke and Tenten bowed, watching as a flash of yellow and red occurred where their lord and leader once stood. Come on, let's get back, I bet you can't wait, Sasuke continued. Tenten smirked as she looked down upon the sleeping Hyuga male lying before her on the ground, licking her lips once again in hunger, and most of all lust. No, I can't, Sasuke-kun, I can't wait until tonight, Tenten answered with a red blush on her cheeks, with a grinning Sasuke watching on intently. Shikamaru sighed, mainly in boredom. He was easily able to keep up with the feeble attempt at escape. The horse was seriously exhausted, and the small-looking male human upon it seemed to grow anxious as the horse was slowing down from the gallop. The shadow demon remained well within the trees, watching his intended target closely. He briefly wondered how Tenten was doing against the other human, but seeing how excited she was, he knew he had nothing to worry about. His senses picked up a surge of power as a red and yellow light flashed beside him, showing his leader in all his glory beside him. Shikamaru, what is taking you so long? The blonde questioned. The target is down there, my lord, the horse is fully exhausted. Let's just watch briefly for now, Naruto quietly ordered. Both demons stayed hidden within the trees, both their presences contained, to not arouse the human's suspicions. They had both continued to watch as the horse came to a stop and the human on top became panicked. A slight toothy grin appeared on Naruto's face. He really did enjoy hunting his prey. Hinata was scared out of her mind as she had the feeling she was being watched. She glanced at the horse, seeing it was fully exhausted and panting heavily. She wondered briefly how far they had traveled, and she knew just by looking at the horse she couldn't get him to continue onwards. She was growing increasingly worried about Niji, and knew she couldn't go back to him as she finally got off the horse. Still in her disguise, she took what she could from the horse and decided to continue onwards on foot. Naruto watched everything as he decided that they would make their appearance known. Signaling to Shikamaru, they both jumped down to the ground, startling Hinata as she turned to face them. Hinata was petrified as she took in both males that was stood a few feet from her. The horse had felt their presence, and managed to gallop away in fright, leaving her stranded at their very mercy. Naruto looked the human over intently, but there was something different about this human that seemed to call on his demon blood. The scent the human gave out smelled sweet and flowery, much to his confusion, but his demon side certainly reacted to this trembling human in front of him. "Surrender," he shouted out loudly in warning. Hinata trembled. She knew that her cousin had told her to escape, and she had no choice but to follow her cousin's last orders. She could not be captured at any cost. She was the princess of her clan, although under disguise as a male branch servant she couldn't be discovered. Dropping what she had on her person, she made a run for it, much to the surprise of both Shikamaru and Naruto, who let out a primal growl within him, surprising the shadow demon beside him. "Shikamaru, grab the stuff and head back to base. I will get him," Naruto ordered, as he gave chase, leaving Shikamaru to look on. Shikamaru nodded with a sigh as he went to retrieve the bags, also cursing the horse that had disappeared, knowing he had to carry the bags strewn across the floor. What a drag this turned out to be, Shikamaru groaned out, grabbing items and placing them into his shadows to take back with him. Hinata was frantic, her heart pounded within her. She ran as fast as she could, hoping that she would be able to get away from those that were pursuing her. Never in her life had she felt so alone and afraid in the space of a few hours. She was now without her beloved family. Her father and her guardian, Ko, both gave their life for her and Niji to escape. Now Niji had done the same, fighting them for her to escape and find safety. The tears were gathering in her eyes as she fought viciously for them not to fail. All her life she had been looked down upon with disappointment. Even Niji had looked upon her as a disgrace up until only recently, after the true events of her uncle's death was revealed. Her father, although still cold towards her, had managed to rekindle her and Niji's relationship to how it was when they were children. Hinata saw Niji as her elder brother, and always had, even in the times when his eyes looked upon her with so much hate. The trees seemed to move and make rustling noises all around her that played with her already frantic nerves. Her legs were feeling tired and her lungs screamed at her to rest and take breaths of air. Hinata found her pace slowing. Her robes, that were no longer clean and pristine but dirty and ragged from the branches, had been torn but still clung upon her clothes as she fought her way through. Feeling herself slow down, she decided to take a glance behind her, and to her surprise saw that she wasn't being followed as she finally slowed down, panting breathlessly. However, she failed to notice that her pursuer was directly behind her. "I told you to surrender," Naruto stated calmly. Hinata jumped and screamed as she saw the blonde in front of her. She fell on her backside, staring at him with wide eyes, petrified with fear. Naruto was, however, stunned speechless, seeing the small human more closely. His eyes took in the wide eyes of the human trembling before him on the ground. The color of pale lilac, they looked beautiful, as well as their face was absolutely breathtaking to him. The blonde demon lord shook his head of those thoughts, knowing that this was a male human. But somehow his demon half was calling out to him. Why was his demon side reacting? Hinata couldn't take it as she felt her head spin before passed out from the mixture of fear and exhaustion. Naruto grinned as he walked over and picked the human up in his arms. His senses were immediately overwhelmed with the sweet smell of the human scent that consumed his senses fully as he let out a groan. Shit, what the hell? Naruto thought as he transported them back to his domain. The blonde had arrived holding his human prisoner, who was very light. His body was tingling all over, which confused him deeply. Sasuke along with Tenten was waiting, as well as a yawning Shikamaru who had placed the bags against the wall. The other human male was knelt on the floor, hands bound, as his head was low, looking at the floor. "Sasuke, take this one," Naruto ordered. Sasuke walked towards him, taking the small figure into his arms. His eyes widened slightly as he activated his bloodline, scanning the human, making Naruto eye him curiously. Naruto gathered his attentions on the male who was knelt on the floor. "You are now my prisoner, human. You trespassed into my lands and I want to know why," Naruto ordered. Niji stiffened as he glanced at the male who spoke, and his eyes widened as he saw his cousin in the arms of the dark-haired demon male beside him. His heart rate increased in worry, as he felt the sharp blade of a kunai pressed against his neck. My lord asked you a question, Niji Hyuga. It would be in your best interest to answer him, and answer him truthfully. The woman he fought spoke in a warning tone. Niji Hyuga. Niji, so you're the nephew, huh? Sasuke answered, knowing certain members of the supposed Hyuga clan. Naruto looked at Sasuke, who was still holding the other human that Naruto couldn't help but be drawn to. Clutching his hands into fists, he tried to regain his senses as he moved his eyes to the man still knelt on the floor. I asked you a question, human! Naruto shouted. Niji flinched as he knew he needed to appeal to the demons in the room, and quickly. He couldn't risk death to himself, or his cousin. My name is Niji Hyuga. I am the nephew of Hayashi Hyuga. Our village has fallen to the demon snake Orochimaru. My uncle Hayashi asked me to escape, so myself and 2 other members of my family managed to get out through a secret escape route where horses and provisions were on standby. We were heading for Wind Country to one of the human villages that we knew was closest. However, we were being chased by pursuers and had entered your land by mistake. Niji answered. Your other member was found by us when we confronted Orochimaru's lackeys. They included Kabuto, his obsessed servant. Your colleague had already died. He was tortured. Sakura answered as she had stepped into the room. Sakura, take her to sick bay, Sasuke stated, loud enough for everyone to hear. Wait, what did you just say? Naruto asked, looking at Sasuke. I asked Sakura to take this girl to the infirmary, Sasuke replied with his eyebrow raised. You're holding information, so I suggest you tell me everything before I kill you. Where you stand, Naruto growled, leaking killing intent that had Niji choking in fear. Niji was sweating. They had now discovered Hinata was a female, and soon they would discover she was in fact the princess of their clan, and there was nothing Niji could do but tell the truth and hope they would both be allowed to survive. You're holding information, so I suggest you tell me everything before I kill you. Where you stand, Naruto growled, leaking killing intent that had Niji choking in fear. Niji was sweating. They had now discovered she was a female, and soon they would discover she was in fact the princess of their clan, and there was nothing Niji could do but tell the truth and hope they would both be allowed to survive. The entire room grew silent. No one moved, seeing their blonde leader tremble with fury. They understood why Naruto disliked humans, and knew they had to walk on eggshells when his fury peaked like this. Naruto's parents were well loved by all the demons, their parents and own clans included. They were extremely loyal to their friends, a trait that their son had tried to follow to this day. But during the demon war, both his parents were betrayed and butchered by not only demons but the humans as well. They had already allied themselves with the enemy they were fighting. The humans had lured his parents' group into a trap where they were taken by surprise and shown no mercy as their lives were taken without remorse. Only Kakashi Hatake, a well-renowned dog demon who was loyal to Minato and Kushina, survived the massacre, but just barely. When Naruto found out, he was distraught, and when told the circumstances of what had happened by Kakashi, his anger never relinquished. To him, only his fellow loyal demons mattered. Only those he trusted were allowed sanctuary within his lands, his home. The only person he broke this rule for was Tenten, who he had met on a bloodied battle scene a few years prior. Flashback. The battle had long been over when the small group had arrived. The skies were dark with distinctive shades of red and deep orange, signaling that the night would soon set in as the sun was setting in the far distance. They had heard of the impending battle that had raged on for days. Even some humans from other countries and villages had now joined into their war. The surroundings were grim just looking at a distance, and Naruto felt his anger build at what he was seeing. The howling winds were all they could hear. By the looks of the carnage all around them, it had been a one-sided massacre that even made the great Lord Kyuubi's stomach turn. The stench of death and decay overpowered their senses as they took in the surroundings that showed them how bloody the battle had been. Familiar crests of clans had been torn and bloodied but were still noticeable to Naruto and the select few that he brought with him. The war had taken its toll on everyone he held dear, including his beloved mother and father, who were lured into a trap and then ruthlessly betrayed and massacred by their enemies. It had only been a few weeks since then. His heartbreak had given in to anger and distrust. The chaos and destruction around him brought home the horrors of war firsthand, as he saw the decaying corpses littered around the surroundings, getting Kakashi, Sasuke, and Shikamaru to search the perimeter and bury the dead of those they knew as a mark of respect. Each of them had lost someone close, from friends, parents, even siblings, so each understood loss very well and gave each other comfort as the war carried on around them. They fought to protect what they held dear from other demon clans that were invading their lands. Lord Naruto, Sakura shouted, standing a few feet from him where a few bodies were laid out. Naruto was shaken out of his thoughts as he walked over to his friend and comrade. He saw her looking over a body that looked female. His blue eyes glanced over, noticing the subtle up and down movements signaling to him that this person was still surprisingly alive. She's alive, my lord, And she's human, Sakura stated, watching the blonde's reaction. Naruto took a good look, seeing the heavily injured woman and torn clothing exposing parts of her body that were covered in blood. He also saw the signs of infections from deep wounds upon her arms and legs, as well as rope tied around each of her wrists and ankles. He glanced upon her feverish face, taking notice of her pale white skin with flushed red cheeks. Her bloodied forehead dripped with sweat. Eyes flickered open as empty scrolls were strewn beside her that made him finally understand who this person was. She was the demon huntress of Fire Country. He had heard of her battles throughout the lands, mainly going after bounties on rogue demons that preyed on the weak and vulnerable. He was confused as to why this female human was now severely injured, surrounded by dead bodies that fought in a battle of war. To his understanding, she wasn't allied to any side of the ongoing war that had grown immense these past few weeks, spreading like a disease in its wake. He took notice of her eyes that flickered open, taking in the dark eyes that were glazed over, staring at him intently, as if she knew he was looking down at her. "What happened here?" Naruto asked, wondering if she would tell him. "A massacre," he heard her pant out in pain. "How come you're injured, demon huntress? I thought you only collected bounties from rogue demons?" Sakura's eyes widened, looking at the female beside her, as she had assessed her wounds but did not proceed any further unless Naruto gave her orders to. Sakura Haruno from the Haruno clan. Their symbols were Sakura trees in bloom. They were a proud clan of demons. Her father was the head of the clan with strong allies including Naruto's family and Sasuke's. Sakura was their only daughter, and she had trained hard each day. When her parents were butchered along with many of her clan members, Sakura wanted to get even stronger. She had sought out Tsunade Senju to train her, and was accepted and had been taught for many years by Tsunade, the slug princess and master in medical procedures. She was as good as her master herself, if not more, after all the studying and training she had done under her. Seeing an injured person laying before her, whether it was demon or human, made her instincts scream at her to attend to the wounds, but she knew she couldn't unless Naruto gave her orders to. The battle was immense, so much bloodshed, no prisoners were taken and no honor given, the wounded woman panted. Naruto grit his teeth, understanding what she was getting at. The winning side decided no prisoners, and those that surrendered were tortured and killed nonetheless, without a shed of dignity or honor that was sacred to all demon clans throughout. Naruto glanced at the woman that had now passed out from her wounds, and he turned to Sakura, who looked up at him. "See to her wounds and bring her back with us," Naruto ordered as he walked away, leaving Sakura looking on stunned. Naruto that day had somehow came to respect the demon huntress Tenten, allowing her to heal within his home and allowing her sanctuary within his lands that she grew comfortable within, and had remained, deciding to stay and fight beside him and his friends who had slowly looked upon her like she was one of them. Flashback ends. However, his respect fell towards Tenten only and no other human. He distrusted them immensely, and seeing the trembling form of the male Hyuuga before him, he could sense that the man was holding back vital information. Information that he needed to know. He had his home and lands to protect, as well as those that he looked on as family, and he had promised to look after them no matter what. Naruto hated those that would deceive him no matter the circumstances. His home was a sanctuary to friends and allies that he considered family, and if this human had somehow brought danger through his lies, he would sever his head from his body without a single care or remorse. "Did you go deaf, human? I asked you a fucking question. So, tell me the fucking truth," Naruto roared. Tenten gripped Neji harshly by his hair, pulling it back hard as her sharp kunai pressed even more into his skin, producing running trickles of blood. A pained grunt escaped from him as he tried to breathe through the immense chakra leaking out of the blonde demon in front of him. He knew he had no choice but to submit. Elsewhere, Otogekure. Two figures had walked the narrow hallways towards the room they knew their master was waiting in. The dark hallways were filled with dim lighting from the flickering flames of lit torches. There was no silence as they continued walking down the long narrow hall with the sounds of cries, screams, and anguished pleading that could be heard from one closed door. It was one of the many rooms holding the many prisoners they had captured. Another room had sounds of pained moans and screams coming from another. Hyuuga shivered knowing what was going on in that room, as well as a few others that littered the stronghold. Females that had been captured, whether human or demon in origin, were selected and used as breeding whores by her master. He would select only his most loyal warriors of his large army to partake in their lust and desires to breed newborn babies that he could harness and cultivate into a growing army that would make him grow more powerful. Hyuuga stiffened as she heard the female screams of those that had been selected and felt the bow rise in her throat. She had seen it firsthand as her own male teammates took pleasure in raping the many female prisoners repeatedly, and felt relieved that she wasn't selected by the snake and put through that ordeal, and was always on guard. She was petrified, brought here as a child and held prisoner, as well as other children that had been captured by the snake demon. Her life was within a steel cage for a couple of years until she was selected to be experimented on as well as others. The pain she endured hurt like nothing she had ever experienced. No one was coming to save her from what she was told her family had already perished, and her life was now forfeit to the slimy snake she hated with every ounce of her demon blood running through her veins. Her thoughts broke as soon as she came to a set of double doors which held the snake demon Orochimaru inside. Kabuto opened the door, seeing his master look at the new set of prisoners that was stood in a line chained as he eyed every one of them, licking his lips with his snake-like tongue. Sounds of sobs could be heard as the prisoners, mostly consisting of women and children, trembled petrified. "My lord," Kabuto announced, kneeling before his master, followed by Taiuya. "So did you capture them?" Orochimaru asked. "No, my lord, we pursued them, but they had entered his territory. The Kyubis, we did follow them and killed a branch member that was traveling with them. But we were encountered by the demon lord himself as well as his two sidekicks," Kabuto reported. Orochimaru's hands clenched into fists as his eyes narrowed dangerously. His perfect planning to secure a main branch Hyuuga that bore no seal upon their forehead had failed miserably. The one he so desperately wanted was the leader's daughter, a beautiful creature, from what he had seen thanks to his serpent summons that he had summoned to spy upon her. Long indigo hair that flowed past her mid-waist, creamy skin that looked so soft and delectable. Her body was so well proportioned that it could make any male, whether he be human or demon, want to ravage her with lust. Even he was not immune to such beauty. Her eyes were beautiful and held secrets he needed to unlock. To him it was the next stepping stone to gathering the Sharingan, another bloodline he inwardly craved to have. But now his plans to secure her and have her was in ruins, all because of that bastard Hayashi. He had made sure of it, and they had escaped before they even knew what had happened. His anger boiled within him. Now the Lord Kyuubi most probably had her in his clutches and most probably knew who she was, and Orochimaru knew that the chances of himself getting the girl in his clutches would be extremely difficult. "Guards, take them to the cells now," Orochimaru ordered out, his tone dark. A couple of guards appeared from the shadows, bowing before him, then grabbed the chains, pulling the prisoners out of the room as Orochimaru turned and took a seat upon his chair, staring at Kabuto and Taiuya. "Any casualties?" "3 hybrid soldiers, my lord, courtesy of the Haruno bitch." "I see. Gather your team, Matest Taiuya. I have a mission for you all to go on for me." Hinata could feel herself waking. Her body could feel something dreadful surround her. It felt so angry and full of hate that it scared her to the very core. Her eyes fluttered open, seeing a room she had never seen before, as well as a beautiful woman with short pink hair that was holding her in her arms but stood staring at one area. Her eyes followed curiously to where she was looking at and saw someone covered in red chakra that made her body tremble subconsciously. Hinata then noticed her cousin on the floor, upon his knees, with a woman stood behind him, holding a sharp weapon against his neck, and Hinata felt panic overtake her. "And no Niji and I," Hinata shouted as she struggled out of Sakura's arms, running towards her cousin, grabbing something concealed within the robe she was wearing. Everyone's eyes widened as she stood before her cousin, a blade in her own trembling hand pointed to the woman whose grip was holding her own blade upon her cousin's neck. "I'll let him go," Hinata shouted out. Tenten blinked but didn't move, hearing the distinctively female voice filling the room. "Let him go, take me instead," Hinata pleaded. Hinata couldn't help but feel her tears gather. She couldn't lose yet another member of her family. She had lost everyone she had ever loved and everything she had known, and she couldn't live on if he died as well. "So, tell me, girl. Who are you?" A male voice spoke calmly, making Hinata flinch. Hinata glanced to the side, immediately noticing that the air around them was easier to breathe and the red chakra had now fully dissipated into nothing. Her pale lilac eyes took in the man that stood a few feet from her, seeing his blonde hair and blue eyes with 3 distinct lines present upon each cheek. Her eyes had widened considerably as she instantly recognized him as the man who had caught her from her attempt at escape. She then suddenly realized that she had just compromised herself further, and knew that she couldn't lie to the beings in this room, demon or human. She had to tell the truth. "He is my cousin and my only family. Please don't hurt him," Hinata pleaded, still clutching the blade in her trembling hands. The blonde stared at her trembling form, holding a sharp weapon she had concealed within those robes that, in his opinion, hardly suited her. For once in his life he was surprised by the newly discovered female, who without a care for her own safety stood, center of attention, against him. Although trembling and obviously scared out of her mind, she still stood protectively in front of the male that was her supposed family. The blonde demon was inwardly impressed by her but never showed it outwardly. "You didn't answer my question. Who are you?" the blonde repeated calmly. "I am Hinata Hyuuga, daughter of the late Hayashi Hyuuga," Hinata nervously answered. Everyone in the room remained quiet as Naruto listened to her soft voice. His demon senses felt intrigued by the very sound of it, as his demon heart began to beat faster within him. Naruto grit his teeth, finding what was coming over him was annoying as he tried to remain calm, even though inwardly he was growing very curious regarding this human, who was now revealed to be a girl. Hinata Hyuuga, only daughter to Hiashi Hyuuga, leader of the Hyuuga clan, considered a princess. Shikamaru announced to the deathly quiet room. Please, I beg you and myself and my cousin mean you no harm. I have lost my father and guardian as well as my C clan and B village in just a few hours. Please don't take Niji from me too, she pleaded. Naruto listened to her heartfelt pleas and his demonic chakra flared, causing the girl to back away in fear. The blonde reined his chakra back within his body. Hinata, still exhausted, had now fallen to her knees, bowing her head in submission, as the blade she had held fell to the cold, hard floor below. Praying to every deity possible that her cousin wouldn't die in front of her, and leave her all alone in this world. Why should I not kill him? He tried to deceive me. Naruto questioned. Please, I will take his place if it so pleases you, Hinata stated, her voice trembling, full of emotion. Naruto blinked at her response, but felt a smirk about to appear on his lips as his thoughts raced within and managed to keep a blank face for now at least. Hinata-sama, Niji said aloud, his hands struggling against the binds that held his hands tightly together. Tenten, Naruto called out, gaining her attention. Yes, my lord. I have come to a decision. Your request is granted. You may take him as your pet, Naruto announced. Tenten grinned as her cheeks glowed into a pretty shade of pink as Niji stopped his struggling and blinked, registering the words that were said in complete confusion. Thank you, my lord. I will retire to my quarters, Tenten stated calmly, but inwardly was excited. Niji didn't have time to protest when he disappeared in a puff of white smoke along with the demon huntress, leaving smirks and laughter all around the large room. Hinata saw everything happen so quickly as her stomach turned and her heart clenched painfully within her chest as her tears fell more prominently from her eyes. And Niji! Hinata screamed, terrified for her cousin. My lord, what about the girl? Shikamaru asked, curious, looking at the girl in question, who was terribly distraught. Sakura, take the girl to be looked over and report back to me your findings, Naruto ordered. As you wish, Sakura sighed, walking towards the sobbing girl. Please, and Niji, Hinata sobbed brokenly. Sakura grabbed the girl's arm, pulling her to her feet, and took her away as the male demons watched on curiously. Well, what will you do with him? Sasuke asked, curious. The male is now Tenten's priority. She does seem quite smitten with him. I wonder if she will tame him? Naruto answered with a smirk. I think she has deprived herself for too long, but what about the girl? There is something about her that is pulling me to her, Naruto admitted. Sasuke and Shikamaru's eyes widened at the news. In all the years they had known Naruto, he had never felt a pull to any female to their knowledge. Naruto was a powerful demon, one of the 9 great demon lords of this world, and was known as the Demon Lord Kyuubi, who contained the 9-tailed fox's power within him, carefully chosen by the demon sage himself, like all the great demons within their world. It was common knowledge to those that knew the blonde well that he had traits related to the fox as well as habits, and that would require one mate to bind with for life. Each demon, male and female, knew what it meant to feel a pull towards another. There had been cases with demons and humans throughout time, but demons had much longer lifespans than humans that were scattered throughout the world but were slowly slipping into extinction. I'm going to initiate her, Naruto confided, breaking his 2 friends from their thoughts. What? Are you sure you should? Sasuke stated, shocked. Naruto, you do understand what that could possibly mean, don't you? Shikamaru asked him. Yes, I do, he simply answered back. Hinata wasn't paying attention to where the woman in front of her was taking her to. She just obeyed, not wanting to cause any problems. Her mind was filled with worry for her cousin and the predicament she was now in. They were now prisoners to demons, and that was all she seemed to have gathered. That blonde-haired demon frightened her. He seemed to consider her very soul, and that unnerved her. When her cousin had disappeared, she had heard their laughter that made her anger boil at how cruel the demons were. The 2 Hyugas meant no harm. They only needed to escape those that had destroyed their home and clan. Now they were prisoners being held captive to be subjected to whatever horrors the demons had in store for them. Hinata hadn't even registered the fact that she was now in another large room that seemed to be a medical one. Shelves were filled with containers that were labeled with ointments and medicines, all neat and in order. 4 good-sized beds were inside the room, 2 on either side, made with clean and fresh bedding. The smell of antiseptic was strong in the air as the woman before her placed on a white long jacket upon herself, grabbing some medical instruments and placing them in her pockets. You are to do as I say, do you understand? Hinata numbly nodded, staring at the floor in defeat. She felt broken-hearted, hating the predicament she now faced. I need you to go over there and strip for me, please. Pardon? Hinata asked, stunned. I need you to take off your clothes so I can assess you and run a few tests. I will not harm you, the pink-haired demon stated calmly. Hinata flushed at having to become naked. What sort of tests was she going to do to her? The thoughts raging in her mind nearly made her pass out in fright. Her body slowly moved to the railed curtain that gave her privacy to undress as she removed the dirty servant robes, leaving her bound chest and panties on, refusing to remove them fully. The brunette took a deep breath as she stepped out. The pink-haired medic took notice that she hadn't appeared fully naked as Sakura had asked her to, but pushed the matter aside. Okay, take a seat here, please. Hinata silently complied as Sakura got to work. Pale lilac eyes watched every move the woman made, noticing her hands that had developed a green glowing energy that hovered just inches away from her body. She watched amazed as cuts and bruises miraculously healed before her very eyes. Doesn't that hurt you? Huh. That around your chest, it looks as though you have bound it too tight. You had best remove it whilst I get you something to change into, Sakura stated, having pointed to her binds wrapped around her chest area. Hinata flushed even more, looking down at her tightly bound chest area in attempts to disguise her womanly assets. She hated the body that seemed to have grown more mature even as she was a young adolescent, trying to disguise the fact by wearing clothing that were slightly bigger to hide them. The very thought of revealing them to strangers that were holding her captive made her feel uncomfortable. She didn't want that, especially if she didn't have anything to replace it with. Sakura returned holding a kimono of a deep shade of blue in color, handing it to her to change into. The brunette accepted it as she immediately covered her bare body after loosening the bind slightly but refusing to remove it completely. Stepping out, now fully covered, apart from her pale slender legs as the kimono was short and came to her mid-thighs. I expect you must be hungry? Sakura asked. Hinata shook her head side to side. She didn't want food, she didn't feel hungry, she just wanted to be alone and get some sleep. Her thoughts were on her cousin, that made her eyes glisten with tears. She just wanted to know if he was still alive. Ano and my cousin Niji is he? Hinata quietly asked, a tremble in her voice. Sakura sighed as she placed her instruments down upon her desk, looking up at the girl who looked lost and broken before her. Sakura was wary of humans after seeing what they had done to her clan. Her parents were also killed by deceitful humans who had lured them to their deaths in hopes of gaining power that had been promised by enemy clans from different villages. Looking at this petite woman before her, Sakura couldn't help but feel sorry for her, no matter how deeply she felt regarding humans. Your cousin is still alive. He has caught the attention of Tenten. He will be fine, Sakura assured her. Hinata felt herself feel relieved and thankful that she was told this news, even if it confused her. To know that he was still alive gave her comfort, and the will to still carry on living for now at least. She nodded and bowed in gratitude to the pinkette, who stared surprised at the action. Thank you, Hinata whispered. Sakura nodded as she led her out of her medical room towards one of the rooms that would be where she stayed until Naruto said otherwise. The girl followed her and made no trouble as she went inside, looking around the bare room, seeing the bed to the one side, but it held no windows, just a small lamp upon a small table and a chair to sit on. I will leave you to rest, Sakura stated softly, as she closed the door, locking it firmly. Hinata stared at the locked door for a few moments, taking in the silence and new smells about the room. Her body felt completely exhausted, as did her mind that was swirling from thoughts of what had occurred throughout the last few days before her life had changed completely. Walking towards the bed, she sat down, feeling the mattress sink in from her weight as she finally laid down upon it. Now that she was alone, her emotions suddenly gave way and she sobbed her heart out, from the losses of lives that she held dear, to the uncertainty of what she was now going to face. She was being held captive by a group of demons, and knew not what to expect in the long run. Her tears fell as her sobs began to decrease, her mind completely shut down as her exhaustion finally claimed her to sleep. Niji opened his eyes, focusing in on his surroundings. His mind was slowly beginning to register that what he had thought was an erotic dream was in fact not a dream but reality itself. He moved his body slightly, feeling something warm and soft pressed against his back. His normal stoic features crumbled in an instant when his cheeks became ablaze with color, as he realized what had taken place only a few hours ago between them. A few hours ago. One moment he was kneeling on his knees with a sharp blade from a kunai pressed against his neck, hearing the words "Your request is granted," and the word "pet" escaped from the demon Lord Kyubi's own lips. His cousin's small, trembling form in front of him in complete surrender made his heart clench in complete dread and fear. That was his cousin, the only family he had left in the world. He had given his oath to his uncle's last wish that for them both to escape to safety, and yet, They had been captured within hours of fleeing their home. He was supposed to protect her, keep her safe from potential dangers and those that would do her harm, even if the situation was dire and his own life would become forfeit. That was his honor-bound duty, and he had failed miserably. Feeling feminine hands grip his shoulders, he suddenly felt his whole body disappear from the large throne room filled with killing intent into another room entirely. His eyes blinked a few times to gather his bearings and new surroundings. The room he now found himself situated in was dark with flickers of shadows from the torches that were burning, placed sporadically about each of the four walls. The walls themselves seemed to have an array of various weapons proudly displayed upon them. Niji then realized that he was no longer on a cold, hard floor but upon something undeniably comfortable and soft. Taking a look, he was surprised to see himself sat in the middle of a very large bed draped with red sheets. His cheeks felt heat explode upon them, especially when he realized he wasn't alone. His eyes widened as a gasp escaped his own lips at what he could hear in front of him. The sounds of items falling upon the floor got his attention, as he slowly looked up. There he saw the female he fought in the forest, whose kunai not too long ago had pierced the skin on his neck. Tenten, the demon huntress, stood staring at him with smoldering dark eyes that drank him in entirely. He could only watch bewitched in stunned silence as she peeled off her form-fitting clothes that slipped into a pool around her feet, proudly displaying her womanly assets to him as he could only look on like a gaping fish that had just came out of the water. Untying each of her carefully wrapped buns that flowed down her pale skin like a flow of melted chocolate, she was stunningly beautiful. It made his own breathing come to a standstill. A soft feminine giggle escaped from her red-tinted lips. Her dark-colored eyes locked gazes with his very own. His blush seemed to have intensified as he felt the bed dip from her climbing upon it, crawling upon the red sheets on all fours, slowly moving towards him like a predator to claim her prey. Niji found himself unable to move. He was frozen on his very spot. His eyes seemed to drink her perfectly formed body in fully, as he found his mouth grow incredibly dry like the parched desert sands under the intense heat from the blazing sun. Tenten herself felt immensely aroused. She could feel her womanly walls tighten inwardly, as the sweet ache built within her. Her excitement was evident, leaving a trail of her juices running down her inner thighs at seeing the surprised, yet handsome Hyuuga staring at her, as she wasted no time by taking off her clothes. It had thrilled her like nothing she had experienced before. Tenten was not a virgin, but she hadn't had sex in such a long time now that it was driving her crazy. She had heard the pleasure-filled moans from her friends that lived here with her, especially from Sasuke and Sakura, who seemed to want to fuck each other senseless each and every night. Sasuke Uchiha, the raven-haired Tengu demon, would tease her frequently to see her flustered face and apparent arousal that was easily picked up due to their demon senses. She would have loved to wipe that teasing smirk from his face and show him untold pleasures that a human woman such as herself could give him. She had to admit she had been seriously tempted. Sasuke was extremely handsome. His dark raven hair with a bluish tint suited his pale skin. His eyes were as dark as onyx that could spin into red and black patterns in an instant and render you incompetent. Although Sasuke was a demon, she had found herself close to him. He had the attitude she craved for in a man. The fact that he was a demon had never bothered her. She had heard the stories from various human women that were lucky enough to spend the night with a demon male and learned how they had climaxed continuously with untold pleasure. Tenten had wanted to experience that, but had kept to her own kind that through the years were dwindling down to near extinction. More so now due to the great demon war that was still raging on in other parts of their world. However, although tempted by Sasuke's teasing, he was in fact Sakura's lover, and she would never come between them, no matter what heights her desires reached. Since her arrival here, thanks to Naruto's kindness and hospitality, she had grown extremely close to each of them. Through the years, hearing each of their stories, she felt their pain of loss, and at times she felt ashamed of how her own kind had contributed to their individual pain. It had shocked her, but it hardly surprised her. Although they were demons, they had always kept their distance from the human civilizations. Until the wars from various demon clans in the countries fought and invaded different lands. The many human settlements were pillaged and destroyed, with the humans either escaping or being killed, or worse, captured, by the invading demons who decimated their life. It was a common occurrence which led to her fighting them and taking bounties from certain demons listed. Until she came into a bloodied battle scene and involved herself in the battle, being severely outnumbered and beaten by the bastards who fought without honor, as each demon clan should have. Tenten broke away from her thoughts as she licked her red lips. She came up close to the Hyuuga that had captivated her when she fought him. His fighting style was as graceful as her own unique way of fighting, and that caught her attention. This man named Niji Hyuuga was honorable, and that in itself was a rare trait in their world. When she fought this handsome man, there was something that drew her to him like a moth to the flame. Seeing this handsome man up close like this captivated her completely. His white silver-colored eyes solely looking upon her that made her own body tremble with desire, making her whole body yearn for him, to touch her and caress her with his two hands. Licking her lips, she reached past him, grabbing a small blade she kept under her pillow, bringing it towards him, breaking him out of his spell. She watched as his body stiffened, seeing the sharp object twirling within her hand, and took a deep breath that didn't escape her attention. With a flick of her wrist, she cut through his robes, causing him to gasp, as she tore his clothing apart, revealing his firm-toned chest to her viewing pleasure. Wait, why you doing? Niji stuttered. His face was a shade of crimson. Isn't it obvious? Niji Tenten purred seductively, noticing immediately how well his body reacted. Niji grit his teeth, feeling his own loins stir like crazy. He had never felt so turned on in his life. He was the head of the Hyuuga side branch. The elders had been in talks with him with regards to an impending marriage that would be seen over by his uncle. Most of the elders had wanted Niji to marry his cousin Hinata when she was of age, to bring both branch houses closer together than they ever had been before. Hayashi's true wish was to mend the divide that had occurred on both sides of the family, and bring them together. But the talks had stalled due to the upcoming threat they had just endured. Now all talks of his uncle's dreams lay in waste, as there was no longer a branch or main family to unite. Now their clan was in ruins, obliterated within a day, leaving just himself and his younger cousin still alive, and he wasn't entirely sure for how much longer. Wait, Niji moaned, his inner thoughts broken in an instant. He looked down, shocked to see his trousers were completely removed, showing his erection, that was already leaking pre-cum from its tip. His cheeks burned even hotter at being so shamelessly exposed in front of a woman he had only just met. His senses went completely over the edge, feeling a soft but firm grip surround his hardened length, and her hand moved up and down upon it. Niji's head tilted back in pleasure, his moans escaping his parted lips. He felt her breath fan against his ear. Hearing her moan was sending him crazy. Feels good, doesn't it?" she moaned out. Niji heard her but just couldn't answer her. He grunted, feeling her hand remove itself from his cock, feeling his hands suddenly become free from its binds. Then the feeling of a sharp blade pressed once again against his neck. What? Listen to me, Niji, you are now my pet, rewarded to me by my lord who I owe my life to. If you wish to survive as well as see your cousin again, you will obey my every demand. Besides, you will certainly benefit from this arrangement, Tenten confided to a shocked pair of Hyuuga eyes. Niji was shocked at her words as they began to fully sink in. He was now her pet, rewarded to her by her lord. His thoughts once again were broken, feeling something extremely tight and wet slowly impale itself on his overly sensitive cock. Fuck! Niji hissed, now registering what was going on. Tenten was now firmly seated upon his lap, his cock now fully embedded deep within her tight and wet heat. His eyes rolled back at feeling something so pleasurable, knowing that he had never felt something like this before. Tenten moaned out loud, her whole body trembling as her inner walls trembled and tightened around him. Oh yes, you feel so fucking good, Tenten moaned in breathless pants. Niji then felt her hips move as his cock reached even deeper inside her. All thoughts that were swirling in his mind lay forgotten as his body succumbed to the many raptures of pleasure that this woman was bringing his body and mind to. Present. His cheeks were still rather hot at the very thought of what had occurred between them. She had certainly opened his eyes to the delights of sexual pleasures, and he remembered how her body writhed in ecstasy from each thrust of his hips that he gave her. The images he could remember from his pleasured haze of images seemed to once again stir his loins, causing him to moan into the pillow. He felt soft hands trail down his chest, heading downward to his hips. Each trail of her fingertips left a trail of blazing fire licking against his skin, causing his body to tremble. Another giggle escaped from her as her warm and wet tongue licked down his shoulder blade and down along his upper arms. It seems you are still hungry for more of my attention? Tenten purred. Niji couldn't answer her, and only proceeded to swallow thickly. Naruto was currently in his throne room, seeing Kakashi, Kiba, Sai, and Shino stood before him. Choji had arrived back injured, and Sakura immediately set to work on attending his wounds, with Ino assisting her. Sasuke as well as Shikamaru stood to either side of their lord, interested at what had taken place. What the hell happened, Kakashi? Naruto ordered. We were patrolling our borders as you ordered, and we had split up into 3 groups, with Sai taking to the skies to look over the terrains from above. Kiba and Shino went to scout one side as Choji and myself went to scout out the other. Choji and myself were monitoring our borders near the human village that had fallen. I had sent out my hound summons to scout it out further, Kakashi reported. What did you find? According to Pakin, it was being thoroughly searched by Orochimaru's men. They were gathering up items and any valuables that they could find in the buildings that hadn't been completely destroyed, Kakashi replied. Most probably looking for something? He does have quite the following, Lord Naruto, Shikamaru responded. There must be a reason for him sending his men in a search through the village ruins though? That slimy bastard is power obsessed, I have a feeling that he attacked that village so that he could get his hands on an unsealed Hyuuga. Sasuke replied. Unsealed? Naruto asked with a raised brow. Sigh, troublesome my lord, the Hyuuga clan are an old clan on the human side, that have been around as long as the demon clans of Senju and Uchiha, including your own clan and many more. However, their clan was divided, one being the main branch and the other being the side branch that were there to protect the main family. Each side branch of the family was sealed with a unique seal called the caged bird seal. Why it was created, I am uncertain, but I suspect it was to protect their bloodline from outsiders. Shikamaru explained. Interesting, I have never made myself interested in human affairs. Besides Kakashi, how come Choji was injured? What happened to him? We encountered some of Orochimaru's hybrids, my lord. There was at least a dozen that had entered our lands. We encountered them on our way back to meet up with the others and had to fight them from proceeding any further into our lands. Choji got injured due to the new experiments that bastard created within them. Whatever they used managed to knock him out and injure him in the process. The blonde growled in anger at the news. Orochimaru was pushing his boundaries and he wondered why the snake was desperately trying to invade his lands. I know that once my grandfather had mentioned that we are supposed to be closely related to the Hyuuga, although they are human and my clan were demon. I'm not sure if it was true or not, but my grandfather firmly believed we were distant cousins or something along those lines, but we never investigated the matter further. I do know that Orochimaru is obsessed with my clan's eyes, the Sharingan. Maybe he is after the Hyuuga bloodline, the Byakugan, as well, Sasuke pointed out to the room. You do have a point, Sasuke, Kakashi replied, thinking on it. That reminds me. Were both of the Hyugas sealed? Naruto asked. Well, both of them had their foreheads covered. From what I heard, the seal is always placed upon their, Sasuke answered. Bring them both here, Naruto ordered. Well, I think Tenny is having fun with her pet. She certainly was last night by the sounds of it, Sasuke smirked. Don't tell me you were listening at the door, team? Naruto questioned. Of course not, I could hear them, that's all. Besides Lord Dobe, I was busy with Sakura, Sasuke retorted. Fine, Sasuke, I want you to bring the girl to me at once, Naruto ordered. Sasuke nodded as he disappeared in a swirl of black feathers, leaving the others to continue their discussions until he returned with the girl. Sasuke appeared in one of the hallways heading straight to the infirmary. He immediately walked inside, seeing Choji on one of the beds heavily bandaged up asleep. Ino was busily throwing the bloodied cloths away as Sakura wiped her brow from the beads of sweat that had gathered. Her green eyes widened slightly at seeing Sasuke enter her working area. Sasuke-kun? Sakura stated softly, a hint of pink upon her cheeks. Lord Naruto has ordered me to bring him the girl. I need the key to her room, Sakura. Sakura reached into her pocket, giving him the key as he immediately turned around and walked out. He hated smelling the antiseptic smells within the room. It reminded him of his parents, and how he watched them suffer in their last moments whilst being treated. Since then, anything relating to medical rooms he couldn't stomach. Even if he was injured, he didn't want to be treated unless Naruto himself knocked him out. He walked quickly towards the room that Sakura had told him where the girl was currently being kept. Placing the key into the lock, unlocking the door, which he quickly opened. The room filled with light from the hallway as he saw that the girl was still in bed. Rolling his eyes, he went towards the bed, pulling the blanket back, exposing her small frame that was no longer in dirty servant robes, but a short blue kimono that was probably one of Ino's. Pale lilac-tinted eyes widened as she let out a shocked gasp, immediately sitting up feeling embarrassed. Sasuke looked at the girl intently and noticed that she still had her forehead covered. You are to come with me, Lord Naruto wants to see you. Hinata swallowed nervously as she nodded and followed behind him. The cool air brushed against her long, slender legs that made her cheeks burn from embarrassment at being so underdressed. She was inwardly mortified at having to be seen in what she was currently wearing. Hinata kept her distance but followed the dark-haired man as he led her through the long hallways past the infirmary where she was taken to before she was locked inside her room. Sasuke noticed that she kept herself at a distance, which made him smirk. Just looking at the girl, he could tell she was entirely innocent and unknowing of the world outside her village's walls. Looking at her puffy eyes tinged with a slight red, made the raven-haired demon know she had been crying. The slight smell of salt still lingered in the room when he had stepped inside. Now seeing her in that short kimono that was quite form-fitting was quite a surprise to him, and he wondered how Naruto would react when he saw her. Hinata herself was growing steadily more nervous with each step she took, not really wanting to be in the presence of the tall blonde leader. Her thoughts were on her cousin Niji, and if what that pink-haired woman had told her last night was true. Hinata heard voices in the distance as she cautiously lifted her gaze, seeing the large open archway that she presumed led to where she was heading. The male in front of her had dark black hair that held a tinge of blue when the light hit against it. His complexion was not as pale as her own but was very close. When she had opened her eyes and saw his dark eyes look at her intently, she realized that what she had hoped was an awful nightmare had in fact been real, and this was now her reality. Her stomach twisted in knots at the revelation, as her heart clenched in fear as to what would happen to her now. The uncertainty of what would happen to both her and Niji frightened her terribly. Now she was being brought to that room again where she had last seen her beloved cousin Niji, and had watched in horror as he disappeared in a plume of white smoke along with the female who had a kunai pressed against the main artery of his neck. She inwardly hoped that he was still alive and unharmed. The voices were many and grew louder. Hinata immediately stiffened and found her legs wouldn't move any further. The dark-haired male stopped ahead of her, as if he knew she had stopped moving. She watched him turn to look at her and watched as his eyes went from black to red in an instant. His eyes held some sort of pattern within them that she was too scared and shocked to take a better observation of. Hinata felt her legs tremble and willed them to move, not wanting to cause further anger in these demons. She had been told many things by the servants and members of her family. She was told of the many clans of demons that roamed the land of fire and other lands. Humans were outnumbered in population as the villages began to dwindle into small numbers spread throughout the many countries. Once they had routes to gain easy passage to other human settlements, but due to the long wars fought by the demon sides it had become too dangerous to travel. Her clan and village never participated in the wars. The elders didn't want to anger the surrounding demon clans with their involvement, and stayed neutral. Her father had ordered that supplies of medicine, water and provisions of food be sent out in aid to their neighbors so they didn't gain their wrath. Their village had their own water source as well as grew their own food and raised cattle. But for whatever reason, their village fell and lay in ruins as those that escaped scattered to safety or were killed in battle to defend their home. "We have not got all day, Hyuuga," the male voice stated, breaking her from her thoughts entirely. Hinata blinked, her body still trembling as she pushed herself to move. Thankfully her trembling legs obeyed her commands as she nervously followed the male into the room. Swallowing nervously she entered, not daring to look up. She kept her gaze on the hard shiny floor, taking notice of the outline of her own reflection upon it. Her heart rate accelerated hearing the room go deathly silent. The voices that she had heard in flowing conversation had immediately stopped. Hinata bit her lip, not wanting her eyes to well up with tears. Her own body was trembling like a leaf against the blowing winds and her nerves were on edge at being alone and terribly exposed to her captor's views. Naruto listened to the discussions going on around him whilst he waited for Sasuke to return with the girl who he had to admit was growing increasingly curious of. Inwardly he wanted to see the girl again, feeling relieved that she was a female and not male, although she was still a human. Listening to their earlier conversations regarding their clan intrigued him greatly, but he needed to know if either of them were unsealed. Earlier he had summoned 2 small red foxes named Kira and Kai to him, and sent them to send word to 2 beings he thought highly of. The first was his godfather, the demon toad sage Jiraiya. His spy network was priceless to him, and his friends and the sage also knew everything regarding the snake demon Orochimaru. The second was his surrogate grandfather, the wise old monkey demon, Hiruzen, from the Sarutobi clan that were most loyal to his father and mother. The elderly demon was wise as well as powerful and held vast amounts of knowledge of the other demons in the other elemental countries of the world. He needed both of them to come to him urgently to discuss the matters at hand and also find a way to stop whatever the snake and his followers were up to, as well as any other dangers that he and his followers may face in the long run. Also, they might just have more information on the human Hyuuga clan that could be beneficial to him. The room grew suddenly quiet as his thoughts were pushed to one side. Seeing Sasuke enter the room, his eyes had switched back to normal, which made his brows raise in question. His blue eyes glanced to the female figure trailing nervously behind him, and his senses went haywire. The room seemed to bathe in her rich flowery scent that he honed onto intently. A low growl escaped his lips as he reined his demon urges within him as his eyes took in the petite female human before him. Everyone present looked at the human girl, as it was their first time seeing her there clearly. Hinata was too scared to look up from the ground at the other demons gathered that she could feel present. "My lord, I have brought the girl as you requested," Sasuke announced, stepping away, leaving her standing nervously on show to all that were present. "Your name escapes me," Naruto spoke out, noticing the flinch from the girl. Hinata. Hinata Hyuuga," the girl answered softly, bowing her head in submission, still not looking at him. "Well then, Hinata, I have summoned you here to ask you a question, and I want you to answer me truthfully. Do not even attempt to lie to me, as I will be able to tell instantly," Naruto warned. Hinata nodded her head, knowing that his claim was possibly very true. "It has been brought to my attention that your clan had 2 branches, a side branch and main branch. The side branch members of your clan bear the seal on their foreheads, where the main family members do not. Considering that you and your cousin are in my lands and now in my home, I demand to know which one of you is not sealed," Naruto stated calmly. Hinata had hoped that nothing regarding her family seal was mentioned and was surprised that it had already been brought up. Niji had told her the importance of keeping herself hidden as she was the only unsealed member that was left of her clan. She was a princess in a way that she herself didn't want to be looked upon as. You haven't answered my question? Naruto growled, growing impatient. The blonde was getting irritated. Why wouldn't she look at him? He was looking at her. He wanted to see those eyes of hers again and take in the pretty color of them to refresh his memory from when he had first encountered her in his forest. Those eyes that held a shade of pale lilac suited the complexion of her skin, and although petrified, she had stepped into the front line to protect her cousin from his wrath. Something the demon Lord Kyuubi immediately took notice of. However, his patience was growing very thin by her refusal to answer him right away. The way she stood there frightened and wouldn't dare look at him made his anger grow at being denied seeing her entirely. TCH. Within seconds she felt a presence mere centimeters from her. Rough fingers with sharp claws gripped her chin, forcing her to look up at him. Her eyes widened seeing the blonde male from before, his eyes a mix of dark blue to a raging fire of red stared back at her own. The red flickers died down instantly to the deepest blue eyes she had ever seen as his other hand moved towards her bandaged forehead. Time seemed to slow for Hinata in that instant, her eyes still locked with his heated gaze upon hers as the mere seconds passed by before her. She couldn't move or react, she just remained frozen. The bandage she had carefully wrapped herself fell in tatters, revealing her bare forehead to his eyes that held no seal upon it, making her close her eyes in defeat as the tears that had gathered slipped down her cheeks. So, you truly are the Byakugan princess from the Hyuuga clan, she heard him announce. Time seemed to slow for Hinata in that instant, her eyes still locked with his heated gaze upon hers as the mere seconds passed by before her. She couldn't move or react, she just remained frozen. The bandage she had carefully wrapped herself fell in tatters, revealing her bare forehead to his eyes that held no seal upon it, making her close her eyes in defeat as the tears that had gathered slipped down her cheeks. So, you truly are the Byakugan princess from the Hyuuga clan, she heard him announce. His blue eyes started to darken, his body felt an immense tingling sensation. So, the girl before him was indeed the daughter of the late clan head? Just as Sasuke as well as Shikamaru had suspected but weren't entirely sure due to their distrust of humans. Naruto, however, couldn't blame them. He himself detested humans, but for some reason or another, with this human girl trembling with shock in front of him, things were very different. Naruto stared at the girl's forehead, ignoring all the urges within him that just a mere touch of his fingers upon her chin had produced. Her scent of flowers had grown stronger, bathing him entirely with her scent. He controlled himself like a rod of iron. Looking at her widened eyes as the tears fell down her pale flushed cheeks was so enticing that he had to remove himself from her presence to get some semblance of normalcy back before he completely lost himself to his urges. Letting go of her chin, he immediately felt himself growl in discomfort from the loss of contact. That made him turn abruptly away as he quickly walked back to his throne to steady his beating heart as well as analyze this new revelation he had just uncovered. So we do have in our hands an unsealed princess. It is no wonder Orochimaru was eager to trespass onto our lands, Shikamaru sighed out. I knew it had to be something along those lines, Sasuke responded. Well, what shall we do now, my lord? Kakashi asked. Nothing for the moment. I have sent my foxes to both Jiraiya and Hiruzen. Their knowledge and experience regarding the snake is pivotal for any future skirmishes we encounter, Naruto replied, assuring his family. What about the girl and her cousin? Tenten has laid claim to the male human named Niji. She requested this from me after she had fought him in the forests, and after I interrogated him, I allowed her to take him as her pet, Naruto informed. Hinata broke from her shock after hearing her cousin's name being mentioned. Her eyes widened at hearing the news that her beloved cousin now belonged to one of them as a sort of pet. Hinata suddenly felt a surge of anger dwell within her at the information that was being revealed to the room. Each of the males that knew Tenten since she had joined them smirked, knowing how sexually frustrated she had been as of late. There was always a tension between Sasuke and Tenten that at first raised eyebrows. Sasuke was with Sakura, although Sasuke wouldn't admit it. He was interested in Tenten and could be quite protective of her. Kakashi, I want you guys to rest up for now. I will call a meeting later today to discuss a plan of action for possible invasion, Naruto announced. Invasion, my lord? Kiba asked, shocked. Yes, we all must remain vigilant. The war is still ongoing in some places. Just because it has been quiet in our lands doesn't mean we will be forgotten by outsiders. The matter with Orochimaru is slowly testing my patience. He knows he is no match to my power, but the snake is a sly one, and we don't know who he has allied himself with, for that matter. That is why you sent for Jiraiya, isn't it? Sasuke asked. Yes, no one knows that snake bastard better than him. With his spy network, he keeps tabs on any demon clans that could be a danger to my lands and home. Naruto responded. What about her? Shino spoke up, genuinely curious. Not any of your concern. She is in my hands now, and I will decide what shall be done with her, Naruto stated to everyone in the room. Now you four are dismissed, so go and get some rest. Sasuke and Shikamaru, you two are to remain here, Naruto ordered. Kakashi, Kiba, Sai, as well as Shino bowed and left the room to go off and rest until later, leaving Naruto with his two friends as well as Hinata, who was growing increasingly angered by what she had just overheard. Naruto glanced at the girl, his chakra started to flare up, he was picking up her emotions, which made his lips form into a smirk. Sasuke raised his brow but didn't comment on the matter, and neither did Shikamaru, who already knew that their lord was already very curious in regard to the Hyuuga girl. My lord, your orders? Shikamaru asked. Yes, Shikamaru, I want you to form a plan of action, divide the others into set teams so that they are ready at a moment's notice. Also, I want you to search through the Hyuga's belongings and see what you can find, Naruto stated, not really caring if the girl heard his order. As you wish, my lord. Shall I also include all our allies? Shikamaru replied. Do what you feel is best. I can always send my fox summons to them at any given moment. Shikamaru nodded as he bowed, then disappeared instantly within his shadows. Hinata tried to calm her rising anger but found it extremely difficult to contain. She could feel both pairs of eyes watch her intently, and she inwardly wondered what would happen next. Naruto had been contemplating many things these past few hours since both humans were captured. The one called Neji was no longer his concern. That was why he let Tenten lay claim to him. He had never seen the demon huntress so excited before, and the sexual tension she had held within herself had stifled many of the male demons in his domain. His thoughts, however, were regarding the beautiful human that by the looks of things was angry by what he had announced to the others. He had to admit she was very interesting and had caught his attention as soon as his eyes set upon her back in the forest. At first, he was confused by how his body reacted to her, thinking she was a man, but once it was confirmed she was in fact female, that just piqued his interests even more. Since Sakura took her to check her over and take her to her room, he had patiently waited for the pinkette to come back to him. His thoughts drifted back to what Sakura had reported. Flashback. Naruto couldn't concentrate on the matters at hand. He could make out bits here and there of the current discussions going on around him between Sasuke and Shikamaru, but he wasn't paying attention. Kakashi and the others were still out on patrol, but all he could think about was the peculiar human being that had just been revealed to be female. He had watched her intrigued, running from the arms of Sakura into the center of the room, holding a sharp weapon that must have been hidden within her disheveled clothing. Although he could see that she was scared and confused, she pointed the trembling weapon at Tenten, demanding that the huntress let go of him. When he spoke, she had turned her head towards him, where once again he took in the color of her eyes that were widened and held unshed tears within them. He had never felt so captivated before, and by a human nonetheless. His demon heart was beating fast, taking a good look at her, feeling the swirling emotions within her. Such loyalty was rare, as she begged in such a sweet and gentle voice that sent his demon blood pumping within him. He had demanded that she tell him who she was, and she did comply, but he couldn't pay attention. The girl before him had stirred his demon senses like nothing had before, and it took a lot for him to rein them in. Hearing her pleas as she fell to her knees before him, then hearing metal hit the hard floor, slightly stunned him. He saw her fully submit herself to him, begging to take her cousin's place. That to him thrilled him like no other. Her words were music to his ears. Why? Because now she would become his sole possession. He had granted Tenten her request, watching the demon huntress blush in excitement, and then thank him as she disappeared in a white plume of smoke along with her new pet to her quarters, leaving the girl to scream out his name in fear and panic, crying in broken sobs of anguish, not paying attention to those that were still gathered around her. His decision was still not fully made, but for some reason his demonic senses within him was screaming at him to take the female and not let her out of his sight. He wanted her checked over and assessed. The only one capable of this that he trusted was Sakura. She was the apprentice to the woman who his mother had selected as his godmother. His Bachan, as he affectionately called her, even if she hated the name and hit him on the head for it, to him it was worth it. Now he was waiting for Sakura to report back to him her findings. Time had passed, and he wondered what was taking her so long. Patience was not one of his specialties, but he knew he would annoy the pinkette if he rushed her. Thankfully he picked up the scent of cherry blossoms, the familiar scent of his pink-haired friend and comrade. He, along with Sasuke, Shikamaru, Sakura, Ino, Kiba, Shino, and Sai, had known each other for many years. Each of their clans knew and respected one another and actually got on quite well with one another, forming bonds that still remained strong to that day. Since the war, they had watched their clan members fall in battle, including their parents. Many loved ones had perished through the years and all had suffered terribly by the hands of their enemies who, worse yet, was demons just like them. Sakura's parents had been slaughtered first as well as all the rest of her clan besides her who at the time, thankfully, was someplace else. Naruto's parents had quickly taken her in as she vowed to grow stronger and asked Tsunade to train her in medicine, to which his godmother agreed to after seeing her jade-green eyes fill with determination. Sakura then left for at least 2 years to train and then had returned completely different. She had grown stronger and fiercely determined. She had heard that she wasn't the only one who had lost their loved ones. Sasuke had also lost both of his parents, and most of his clan had scattered, including his brother and cousin. Sasuke was distraught and broken with Naruto, and the others trying their hardest to take care of him. Sakura took over and managed to do what they could not, and Sasuke had returned somewhat back to his normal self. But at times that haunted look could clearly be seen in him, and only Sakura or Tenten could put it right. Naruto, although powerful, felt jealous of his raven-haired brethren. He didn't feel the slightest bit interested in either female, or even Ino for that matter, who was joined at the hip to Sai. But the blonde demon did feel lonely in that aspect, and at times truly wanted to feel what it was like to feel that way for a female. His parents were madly in love with one another. It was clear to see to anyone how much they valued each other deeply. Naruto had always wanted to know what it was like and if he would one day find someone just like his parents and friends. Naruto, however, knew that now, the situation had changed. Although, he wouldn't admit it was the same thing as what his parents, Sasuke and Sakura or even Sai and Ino had. It was relatively close and very new to him. He was cautious by nature but deeply curious. He saw the faces of both Sasuke and Shikamaru when he confided that he had felt a pull towards the girl, a first for him to even admit to them that he, one of the 9 demon lords of this world, was feeling a pull towards this particular girl who was not a demon but a mere human. "My lord, I am here to report my findings on the girl," Sakura announced to the now quiet room. Her voice broke him out of his inner thoughts. His curiosity about her impending report gained his full attention, especially as it was about the girl who was dominating his demonic mind. "So, Sakura-chan, what do you have to report?" Naruto asked, now looking at his pink-haired comrade and medic. Sasuke and Shikamaru were also silent and had also grown curious. They had been conversing for ages while their blonde leader sat staring into space and not paying any attention to what they were discussing, which was very strange in itself, as Naruto always listened to conversations and contributed. Their discussion, oddly enough, was about the girl that their blonde lord seemed captivated by. Neither of them sure if what she had told them earlier was the truth. Naruto never stated otherwise, but if what the blonde admitted was true, then his powers could come in conflict with his innermost feelings. "I instructed the girl to undress so that I could thoroughly examine her, as well as attend to any injuries she might have sustained during her escape. She remained very quiet as well as surprised at my order. However, she wasn't completely naked as I instructed her to be. She still had her chest area tightly bound as well as not removing her underwear. From my observations, she was very nervous and watched everything I did. She had a few bruises around her body, nothing too immense. She also had scratches on parts of her legs and arms, but that was all I could find, so I healed her accordingly," Sakura reported. "So, she had only minor injuries then?" "That's right, my lord. I did notice, however, that she had the binding around her chest area very tight, and had commented to her regarding it. She had listened and did loosen it slightly, but not that much. The clothing she had worn was dirty and not suitable for her to wear, so I provided her with one of Ino's kimonos that was close at hand. Once she had changed, I then asked her if she was hungry, but she refused. She wanted to know what had happened to her cousin Niji." "What did you tell her?" Sasuke asked. "I just told her that he was alive and now with Tenten," Sakura answered with a sigh. So she hasn't eaten?" "No, my lord, she refused. I did notice that she was physically and mentally exhausted and completely on edge. She never caused any trouble and obeyed my orders, even following me obediently to her room, which I watched her go in and look around, and then I proceeded to lock the door. I then finished my other necessary duties in my infirmary, and then I came here to tell you my findings," Sakura finished. "Anything else you gathered?" "Yes, she seems quite healthy, my lord. I would place her age at around 18, or just slightly under from my assessment. She doesn't seem to be with child and everything seems normal with no abnormalities to report. Also, my lord, she still had her forehead bandaged. I couldn't smell or detect any blood or injuries from it though, but she was very alert and on guard throughout the examination." "Very well, thank you, Sakura-chan, for looking her over for me." "Not at all, my lord. May I ask why?" "Not at this time, Sakura-chan. Let's just say she interests me. You may go now," Naruto stated. Sakura nodded as she bowed her head, then glanced at Sasuke, who nodded his head and watched as she left the room, heading back to her own room for the night, waiting for him to join her, or so he presumed. Naruto watched the pinkette leave while Sasuke watched her walk away. The blonde would have rolled his eyes at the scene, but his thoughts were once again on the female human who had seemed to have awoken his demonic inner senses somehow. It seemed to him that she was still hiding things from him, much to his growing displeasure. His chakra was very powerful, and these instincts within him were growing and were completely new to the blonde demon lord himself. He would have to set things in motion very quickly and make a decision on what he would do with this girl, but the first thing he would do was check if she was sealed or not. Flashback ends. Now here she was, the beautiful human female that he had just found out was an unsealed member of her now near-extinct clan. Shikamaru as well as Sasuke explained to him further in detail regarding information on the Hyuuga clan and what their bloodline was. The Byakugan was a powerful eye technique just like Sasuke's own, but they were both different in terms of power. Naruto was certainly intrigued. He always was when it came to other demons' powers, he just had to see what they could do. The blonde loved to train and add new powers to his ever-growing arsenal. His chakra limits was immense, and he always had plenty more stamina than most of the demons he knew, as well as a healing factor that would heal any injury he sustained in battles. The immense chakra was a trait he had inherited from his mother. She had the same as him, as did every other member of the Uzumaki clan. The healing factor was courtesy to the demonic fox powers he was born with. He enjoyed spars, but the only one that could keep up with him was Sasuke. The others couldn't come close, with exception of perhaps Sakura, which was a possibility due to her training by his godmother. She wasn't famed just for her medical procedures. His thoughts drifted back to reality, as his blue eyes decided to fully look over the girl who was still standing where he had left her. His eyes widened considerably at just realizing what she was wearing, and he licked his dry lips trying to control his demonic urges that were now increasing by the second. The kimono she was wearing was far better to his eyes than what she wore before in those hideous servant robes that he would make sure were burned instantly. He growled to himself inwardly at the thought. Her long, slender legs were endless as he couldn't help but bring his gaze upwards, feeling bitter disappointment where it stopped at her mid-thighs. However, the blue silk material that had floral patterns embroidered upon it didn't hide the shape of her womanly hips that he found was rather nice to keep looking at. From what he could see, the kimono fit her body perfectly, a little too much, but he found that was what he suddenly preferred and wondered what other secrets she was hiding beneath those silk robes. He suddenly knew then and there that what he was feeling towards her would now seriously have to be tested, to make sure that what his demon urges were feeling was what he suspected. Naruto was very conflicted at the thought, but knew it would only get out of hand if he didn't investigate personally. Once he knew for sure, then he would be able to make a decision and go from there. Sasuke had watched his friend and surrogate brother closely, and could feel his chakra flare up and down, and knew that the blonde was trying to control the urges that this human princess seemed to bring out in him. Sasuke wasn't too worried. In fact, he found it quite amusing to watch how Naruto tried to fight his growing instincts. "My lord?" Sasuke stated, breaking the silence, also trying hard to not show his amusement. The blonde tore his eyes away from Hinata, who again was not looking at him, although he could feel her growing emotions that consisted of anger and embarrassment. He was intrigued to find out how she looked and how it would feel to him. "What is it, Sasuke?" Naruto responded with a sigh. "What are your orders about the princess?" Sasuke asked, curious. The room suddenly spiked with raw emotion, causing both demons to fully sense it and turn to where it was coming from. Sasuke felt his lips curve upwards as he glanced to his blonde leader, seeing the profound effect it had on him. He saw his lord's claws were fully extended, clutching the armrests of his throne, squeezing it tightly so that he could hear the wood splintering from the pressure. "So this is how intensely he is reacting," Sasuke said to himself. "Do not call me a princess, I am no longer one, and I do not wish to be seen as one," a female voice stated calmly but filled with venom. Hinata felt her blood boil at what she had heard as they conversed about her cousin and herself as though she wasn't there at all. All the fear, all the worry that she kept within her crumbled into dust as her rage that had been steadily climbing to the surface had finally broken through. Her hands were clenched into fists as she tried to keep her growing anger down, but she couldn't control it. How dare they do that to her cousin Niji, just give him away to one of their women as though he was their property to begin with. How could they do that? She remembered when her cousin, her only family, had disappeared into white smoke, leaving nothing left. It made her heart break at not being able to say her goodbyes to him, apologizing to him for not following his orders. She sobbed brokenly, still looking at where he had been kneeling, seeing nothing present apart from blood drops that had spilled onto the floor as the only reminder to him actually being there. Hearing the laughter around the room to her cousin's demise shocked her, frightened her, and angered her at how callous these demons actually were. She never registered being taken away. She no longer had the will or the strength to fight and escape. In all fairness, she was exhausted by what had gone on around her, having had no sleep due to all the fighting that had taken place around her whilst she was shielded within her room, being guarded by her beloved Ko. Now here she was, once again stood before the proclaimed leader of this group of demons, wearing this highly offensive kimono that showed parts of her body that should remain unseen to male eyes. Her carefully hidden forehead had now been revealed to all that were gathered, showing her identity, that her cousin, her beloved guardian, and her father who sacrificed themselves for in order to keep her safe. Hearing her cousin was still alive but now called a pet shocked her, which gave way to anger that was increasing within her as the blonde demon ordered her family's belongings to be searched thoroughly without a care to her being able to hear it. Then talking about her as if she was a mere object, regarding what was to be done with her, made her anger spike to new limits that Hinata never thought she had in her. If you don't know what to do with me, then either let me go or kill me and be done with it," Hinata shouted. Naruto could feel his senses reacting to her, causing a roller coaster of emotions to swell within him, his fangs elongated, becoming sharper. His fingernails had instantly changed to longer claws. He could feel his chakra building as it flickered from the normal blue he always kept it to into a burning fiery red that was starting to cover his entire body. "My lord!" Sasuke gasped, seeing the effects with his own eyes. "Shit! Guess I can't hold back no longer," Naruto thought inwardly. "Sasuke, I'm going to have to start the initiation," Naruto growled out, trying to keep his senses intact. Sasuke paled, looking at his leader who was trying to fight his demonic urges. Being a demon himself, Sasuke knew how hard it was to fight it, especially when your demonic side felt attracted to another. He himself battled it daily regarding a certain demon huntress. Although Sasuke was currently with Sakura, they had not fully bonded to make it official. Sasuke had held himself back as he wasn't sure if Sakura was the one he would be able to spend the rest of his days with. Tenten had caught his attention very quickly, but he was already in a relationship with Sakura when he came to the startling realization. In his darkest moments, he found not only could Sakura break through his carefully erected walls, but so could Tenten. Each demon's senses developed differently when it came to certain emotions. When they felt attraction to another, it was instantaneous, and it took a lot to rein in and control their demon urges altogether. Sasuke knew how difficult it was seeing his blonde friend and leader, one of the 9 great demon lords of this world, control himself against a small human girl. Sasuke knew he had to remain calm and do as his lord and friend asked. "I will be here for you, Naruto," Sasuke answered softly. Naruto nodded his head in gratitude, his claws now drawing blood from where he had now dug them into his skin. A deep primal growl escaped from him as he stood up from his throne as he let his demon chakra finally take over like it so desperately wanted. Sasuke watched on in silence as he stepped into the background, masking his scent from his friend as it could be extremely dangerous for himself. His eyes twirled as he erected a strong barrier around the large throne room so that none of the others who may walk in and would put themselves in danger. If that happened, it would crush Naruto if he thought he had hurt his friends who he considered his family. Hinata watched as the blonde leader seemed to be in pain. A part of her wondered why, but she then shook the thought away quickly as her anger still raged within her. Her pale lilac eyes glistened with outright fury as the other demons seemed to step into the shadows out of sight. She watched as the blonde stood from his throne, his fists clenched as he trembled in what she perceived to be anger that matched her very own. Only to watch in astonishment as his whole body seemed to come ablaze in a flicker of red energy that grew so intense it took all she had just to remain standing. She watched as blue eyes turned deep red, the lines upon each of his cheeks seemed to become more profound and distinct. His gaze was now locked upon her in a way that made her feel a chill run down her spine. This demon in front of her looked dangerous, and not to be messed with. The swirling red energy consumed his entire body as he began to move slowly, taking each step away from his throne down the small set of steps to the hard, polished floor beneath. Her heart began to beat so fast she thought she would faint. This was different than before, she concluded. Before, she could feel the anger and rage flowing out into the room that made it hard to breathe as she watched her cousin become weak and choke internally from the vile red energy flowing out of the blonde. But to her astonishment, she couldn't feel the rage and anger this time. She couldn't feel anything that carried any ill intent towards her, which confused her. Her anger, although still present, began to dwindle as she felt him getting closer towards her, making her anger turn to panic. Without a thought, she had subconsciously activated her eyes and gasped at seeing the power this demon heading towards her held within him. It was like nothing she had ever seen before, and she felt herself take a step back in fear. She could feel his eyes still locked upon her. Not once had he stopped his movement towards her. Hinata felt her entire body tremble, not wanting him to come any closer to her. Why was he coming towards her? Maybe, just maybe, he would do as she requested and put her out of this hell she had now found herself in. Her determination to face him head on had drastically faltered as she backed away another 2 steps and turned to make a run for it, not wanting to be there a second longer. Hinata heard a loud deep growl come from behind her that terrified her as she ran to the entrance that was completely unguarded, only to find to her complete horror that she was unable to. No, 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 she inwardly screamed. She banged her fists upon the invisible wall, keeping her from escape, finding that it did nothing to the barrier at all. Turning around, her eyes wide and seeing the blonde demon was almost upon her, as she tried to maneuver herself away from him, but found she suddenly couldn't move at all. Her eyes took in how tall he was. She could feel the intensity from the energy around him that was starting to move towards her like a trail of blazing flames from fire. And no, she whispered. A dark chuckle escaped from him that made her inwardly shiver as she looked up to his face that showed his sharp fangs and blazing red eyes that were solely looking at her and into her very soul. She banged her fists upon the invisible wall, keeping her from escape, finding that it did nothing to it at all. Turning around, her eyes wide and seeing the blonde was almost upon her, as she tried to maneuver herself away from him but found she couldn't move at all now. Her eyes took in how tall he was. She could feel the intensity from the energy around him that was starting to move towards her like a trail of blazing flames from a fire. And no, she whispered. A dark chuckle escaped from him that made her inwardly shiver as she looked up to his face that showed his sharp fangs and blazing red eyes that were looking at her and into her very soul. Hinata was petrified, and tried to send signals to her body to get her body to move, but she just couldn't, no matter how much she tried. The intensity of his gaze made her outwardly as well as internally shiver. It felt uncomfortable to her, as if there was something within her that he wanted. Never in her whole life had she felt so afraid. The world that she was born into was not a peaceful one. Far from it, in fact. The demons were higher in population than her own kind, and never had she seen such a look being aimed at her directly, from a demon or a human at that. Hinata closed her eyes, feeling his presence mere centimeters away from her. She could feel the intense heat radiate from his body next to hers. Another growl escaped that sounded very deep and made her flinch as she opened her eyes, seeing him looking down at her with a slight grin showing how sharp his fangs were up close. Hinata swallowed her nerves, wanting to do anything that she could to help her escape away from him and put a rather large distance between them. Never in her life had she felt as vulnerable as she did now. She watched as his fingers, showing sharp elongated claws that she gathered could cut her skin and remove it from the bone, came towards her. Her mind was frantic as she subconsciously gathered her own chakra as a way to hopefully shield her from him, not noticing that the slightest smirk upon his lips had widened into a devilish grin. "That's it. Show me," he inwardly stated. Naruto had let his demon senses take over, however he was still in control. He had watched her anger and determination falter and turn to panic in mere moments, as she stepped away from him to distance herself from each step he took towards her. When she turned around and tried to escape, he couldn't help but release a growl of displeasure. However, his displeasure went away as fast as it arrived, seeing her unable to escape the room they were in. He could sense the barrier that had been placed up and knew it was down to Sasuke, who was probably hidden somewhere watching them. She had tried to hit the barrier to make it disappear, which amused him, knowing that only Sasuke himself could remove the barrier. Unless Naruto decided that he's Sasuke to remove the barrier, which, in this particular situation, he did not. As he drew closer to her, she turned abruptly, showing him those beautiful eyes that held every emotion she had within her. She had stared back at him in panic and fear, not understanding what was going on. To him, he had to do this to keep his sanity. His instincts were dominant, and it was due to her that they had grown so much in just a short amount of time. He needed her in one place and made sure with his power that she couldn't try to escape any further, which worked like a charm. He could feel her struggle against it, but she couldn't escape and closed her eyes, not wanting to see what he would do next. He growled, wanting to look at her again and for her to look at him. He needed to gauge her chakra, and the only way to do so was to get her to activate it deep within her. He knew she had it, the same with her cousin. He had possessed chakra too. Not just demons were born with chakra. So were select humans, mainly from powerful clans like his own. From what Shikamaru and Sasuke had said, the Hyuuga were as old as his own clan as well as the Senju, and Uchiha, and he had seen the spark within her moments ago when she activated those beautiful eyes of hers. He noticed upon feeling her chakra start to flare forth that it pulled him even more towards her. Just a little more, he heard himself inwardly speak. There it was, there was her chakra. It had flared up beautifully just how he wanted. He could feel her flow of energy pushing out through her own body as though trying to shield her from his impending attack. He watched with bated breath as her flow of energy wasn't blue or red, but a deep purple that felt absolutely wonderful brushing up against his own. Naruto felt himself growl and then began to let out a purr of approval. Her chakra felt so good brushing against his that he now had to consume her with his and see if what he was feeling was in fact the pull to mate and to make her his. She had subconsciously caught his attention just by a mere glance in the forest. Her scent was so overwhelming that he couldn't get enough. His mind was filled with thoughts about her that it were sending him slowly over the edge. If what he was feeling was indeed the pull to mark her and mate with her, then he would need to decide what he would do. He would need to subdue her, to mark her, at least for now, so that he would be able to find her. That was the mark of a mate, to know where your intended was, feel their emotions, from happiness or sadness, which would trigger his own. It was known to all demons what it meant for their senses, and what it was supposed to be when they felt the pull to another. He had heard from his father when he was a young kid growing up, listening to this knowledge his father had to give him. His father, Minato, was a good and loving mate to his mother, and a father to him. He had told him everything that was needed to know regarding their pulling urges when they find themselves attracted to a potential mate. His father found it extremely uncomfortable having to explain to his young son how their kind were attracted to their intended other. But his mother had been very insistent due to another lengthy visit from the demon toad Jiraiya. Although confused and slightly disgusted at the time, he had listened and understood what he would have to do, and now the words of his father filled his mind. Naruto, when you feel your instincts pull you towards a female, it will be so powerful it could take a lot just to control it. The more powerful your instincts become, the harder it will be to ignore it. If you want to make sure that it is indeed the pull to mate, there is a way to find out. You will need to initiate it yourself to see if it is an intended mate. His father's words began. First, you have to give in to your instincts. If they grow too much, then you have to start by letting your instincts go. If this happens, you should try to remain in complete control. Secondly, to initiate the female, you have to get her to look at you and to keep her in one place. Use your power to do this, then you need her, urge her to bring forth her chakra. Thirdly, if you feel yourself reacting to her chakra, you need to. Hinata felt her energy come forth and surround her. It didn't seem to put him off, in fact he seemed to enjoy seeing it, much to her confusion. Her hearing picked up his low growls as it then turned into a different sound altogether. For some reason or another she felt herself blush at how he was reacting to her chakra flow. There was something about that look in his eyes and that smile upon his face that seemed to make her feel more uncomfortable. Suddenly the red chakra surrounding him flared even more as it began to merge into her own. Both their energies clashed like fire and water, creating an intense steam between them. This in turn caused her to gasp as every nerve ending in her body grew extremely sensitive within her. Her heart rate began to increase, as the intensity of his heat filled her completely. Wada. Hinata flushed even more at the sound that had just escaped her. She felt mortified, but couldn't do too much about it. Her body grew tremendously warm, causing her breath to hitch and turn into breathless panting. Another chuckle escaped from the blonde as his eyes seemed to devour her even more. So innocent, so pure, yet so responsive, his deep voice purred, causing her body to tremble. Naruto felt his body grow steadily aroused at such a sight before him. She felt extremely wonderful as their chakra energies brushed and entwined together. He could see her confusion and her whole body react. It filled him with demonic pride that he could make her react to him so perfectly. His eyes trailed down to the kimono she was wearing. He wanted to see more of what lay hidden beneath it. Remembering Sakura's words regarding her binds to her chest being wrapped too tightly intrigued him. In all honesty, he was curious and wanted to see what his now potential mate had to offer him when he claimed her, whether willingly or not. After all, she was now his possession. She herself willingly submitted to him, sparking the growing embers within him into ferocious flames that just couldn't be doused out. Naruto pushed out more of his chakra, entering a stage he had only used in times of battle, but this time he had no intentions to fight an enemy with it. This time it was to subdue his newly discovered mate, which had now led him to a decision. Although she was human from a long-standing clan as old as his own, he still didn't trust the human race after what they had done to, not only his own family, but his surrogate family too. Naruto knew, however, that this girl as well as her cousin were innocent of those crimes. Shikamaru had discussed earlier that the Hyuuga clan kept to themselves and would not participate in the war, but did send out provisions of medicine, food and water to where it could be needed. Naruto had taken this into account whilst he kept his thoughts on what he should do. Now he was coming to a decision, but decided that he would explore this girl further before he decided. Hinata couldn't help but keep her eyes locked on this male who had seemed to put some sort of demonic spell upon her, making her unable to move as his energy began to flow around her and upon her. She was confused as to why her own chakra and her own body seemed to instantly react to his own. It felt weird and somehow intimate to her in a way that left her blushing a brilliant shade of red from embarrassment. Her eyes widened further as a blast of his energy surrounded him, turning him completely into a golden yellow from the top of his hair to the tips of his toes. The gold held black symbols which she couldn't understand. His golden flow of energy had her spellbound as it seemed to part and lengthen into two long arms. The power he held was intense. It surrounded her completely as it dominated her own. Hinata tried to reign in her own chakra, but she was being prevented from doing so. It was as if his chakra was holding hers, not allowing it to diminish within her. The long chakra arms reached towards her, making her flinch, not wanting them to come closer. But there was nothing she could do as it touched her, producing strong currents of electricity flowing through her body, making her gasp out loudly. She felt them move along her body, sending her body into a shivering mess. She felt her heartbeat increasing until all she could hear was her erratic heartbeat. Her eyes widened as the kimono she was wearing was torn open wide, revealing her body, that made her let out another gasp filled with horror at the humiliation at being so exposed. Naruto's eyes roamed her now revealed body, showing her nicely rounded hips and the top of her slender thighs from her endlessly long slender legs. She was wearing white panties that shielded her femininity from his eyes as his gaze followed upward, seeing her slim-toned stomach and perfectly formed waist. Then there were the hideous binds that were wrapped around her chest area, keeping them hidden from his viewing pleasure. Hinata tried valiantly to fight him, not wanting to be humiliated any more than she had been. Seeing him look at her exposed body shamed her. She was left feeling slightly relieved that she still had the bindings wrapped around her, as well as her underwear too. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she felt completely out of her depth, being held against her will as he looked upon her, as if she was something he wanted to consume. The hands touched upon her creamy pale skin, causing her whole body to convulse as her legs shook violently, but were still being held up. Her eyes glared at the male as he looked upon her binds, and she instantly knew what he was going to do. "Don't please don't do this," she pleaded, knowing there was nothing she could do to stop him. Naruto ignored her as his hand blazed the binds, holding her, watching in satisfaction as it burned away into ashes, exposing the two extremely large globes of her that burst free from the tightened constraints. His eyes had widened at how this female was utter perfection itself. She stirred him like no other. His hand touched one of her, causing her to let out a subconscious shaky moan that made him smirk, and yet she was growing more horrified. "You can't fight it, try all you want, Hinata, but it will be useless. You are reacting to me as I predicted," Naruto purred. Hinata grit her teeth, fighting the sensations from his unique touches, feeling terrified that what he was saying could be true. Just touching one of her filled her body with a heat that was frightening her, as she had never in her entire life experienced anything like it. Naruto grinned, knowing he was right as he let go of her delicious looking. He had now decided what he would do. She was beautiful, bewitching, although she was human. She had a spark that showed her bravery if she could stand before a strong demon lord as himself and protect someone she cared dearly about. She held perfect traits for when she bore him kits of his own. The very thought made his demon heart beat faster. It was something he had never thought about until that very moment. He needed to finish this before he truly lost control and took her there and then. Although the thought was appealing to him, he wanted to take his time before he fully bonded her to him. The first step done, he had initiated her, and had found that the Hyuuga princess was indeed a perfect mate for him, that was fully responsive to him. He had patience, so he could wait until it was time to take her as his. He willed his chakra arm down her body, enjoying the trembling he was producing upon her. Her beautiful face was completely red from her embarrassment, which was something he found cute but would need to be distinguished. Her scent had begun to spike, the flowery scent had grown stronger, and more enchanting along with the smell of her growing arousal. Whilst one of his chakra hands trailed downwards, the other had undone the braid upon her hair carefully, as though to not damage a single strand. Her dark indigo hair flowed around in the energy like rich midnight-colored silk that looked so appealing to his eyes that he felt the color blended perfectly with her creamy pale skin. She was definitely enchanting, a goddess with mesmerizing beauty that he felt she herself didn't think she held. His other chakra hand had now trailed lightly down her toned stomach towards her hips, past her femininity between her legs till he came to her thighs. His glowing hand grasped her soft flesh, moving towards the inner side. He had grasped the area firmly without harming her with his long claws that he would soon retract. Pushing his energy even more onto that area, he heard her hiss in slight pain as he kept hold of her with his power. Hinata felt butterflies gather at the very pit of her stomach, feeling this weird but intense energy that was in the form of a hand glide across her skin. From releasing one of her, then moving downwards. She had felt her hair being loosened from the braid she had done the day before. His hand had passed her stomach as well as her hips, making her swallow nervously as her body shook wildly at his subtle touches. His hand had now moved to her thigh. Moving inward, she felt as though she would pass out from all the embarrassment she was feeling. He had grasped her tightly in a particular area, and she then felt the intense heat burning against her skin, making her flinch and hiss in pain. She tried to move and fight him off of her, but again, she was held somehow by him that prevented her to move even an inch. The pain was intense as she bit her lips, drawing blood, not wanting to give him the satisfaction of hearing her scream. He had already done enough to her that she felt she just couldn't forgive him. She had no clue what he was trying to do. If he had done this to warn her as well as frighten her, he had succeeded. As quick as it started, The burning sensation eased when she felt another energy soothe the area that hurt, causing her to let out a sigh of slight relief. Naruto smirked as his chakra hand moved away, showing him clearly his newly placed mark. Perfect, Naruto stated, causing Hinata to regain her composure. Naruto reined in his energies. No longer was he covered in golden energy but back to his normal self. His appearance was reverting to how it was before as he closed his eyes, feeling his power diminish to normal. Opening his eyes, he had stepped back, letting the energy around her that holding her in place disappear. Hinata quickly found herself able to move and covered her body away from his view. A severe red blush had traveled to her neck from shame. How dare you touch me? Hinata hissed, her anger returning after getting over her shame and shock. Naruto grinned, although disappointed that she had covered her delightful body from his view, but then again Sasuke had been present throughout, and would have already seen her body, which led him to growl at the thought. His possessiveness had already started to kick in. Sasuke, you may reveal yourself now, however please keep your barrier up for a moment, Naruto ordered. Sasuke, who had witnessed the entire thing, had stepped out. He was still stunned at what had took place between them, and how his friend had managed to keep such control over his emotions. To Sasuke, he had never seen a demon react so much to a human. Although he knew it wasn't uncommon, but it was usually frowned upon with their kind. Hinata gasped, forgetting that they weren't alone, and felt even more horrified that this dark-haired demon had also viewed her naked body, which made her feel faint. She wanted to escape and get away from them, or more importantly Lord Kyuubi, especially after what he had done. Listen to me, Hinata. Hyuuga, you already submitted yourself to me in place of your cousin, did you not? Hinata looked at the blonde with her eyes wide at his words, feeling her heart clench. She knew that his words were true. She did offer herself to spare her cousin Niji's life. I see you can now remember. Hinata swallowed, clutching the front of the kimono she was wearing tightly within her clenched hand. Firstly, you and your cousin, regardless of the situation, have trespassed into my lands. Your cousin would not tell me the complete truth on the matter, hiding things from me which I do not like. This is my home and I have friends who I consider family to protect. You, little girl, have not seen the horrors of war and what myself and my friends have seen. You have been sheltered until now. I could have let your cousin die by my hands and let the snake get his hands on you both, but I have not. Naruto continued. Hinata could feel his gaze upon her once again. He had moved quickly back to his throne as he now took a seat upon it. Sasuke was stood beside him, just watching and listening intently to his blonde friend and leader speak clearly with authority, telling the human who was now his potential mate to put her in her place. Your cousin Niji, I have let him live, so be grateful, as I detest humans for what they have done in this war. Tenten had requested me to let her take him as her own pet, which I had granted her to do so. Tenten will not kill him as she has a certain use for him which, if I am not mistaken, he won't be too unhappy about it. Naruto continued. Hinata blinked away her tears, hearing his words pierce her heart. She felt relief that her cousin was spared death, but she wanted to see him and talk to him, and wasn't sure if she would be allowed to. But you, however, princess, are another story entirely, Naruto announced, making Hinata look back at him with wide, pale lilac eyes. What do you mean? Hinata nervously asked. Naruto grinned as he looked at her beautiful face, seeing her confusion as well as worry. Her emotions were very easy to pick out. The indigo-haired beauty was so entertaining, and so interesting, he found he could never grow tired of looking at her and started to chuckle. The brunette felt fear grip her heart. There was something about the way he looked and the way he laughed, as if there was something he knew she just couldn't get her head around. She couldn't understand what had just took place. Luckily, he hadn't gone any further with her, and to her understanding he had to have done this to put fear within her for getting angry with him as a warning. It had to be so, as her mind that was filled with possible reasons as well as conclusions to his actions against her drew to a complete blank. Why, I'm hurt. How could you forget what just happened between us just now? Naruto stated, feigning hurt. I don't understand? Hinata nervously stated, feeling herself take a step back. Another chuckle escaped as his eyes flashed from blue to deep red. You are now my possession, you belong solely to me, you bear my mark upon your silky soft skin. That means you are mine, and you will soon be bound to me as my future mate. Hinata gasped as her face exploded with the color of deep red, her head shaking side to side in denial. And no, why you see can't. Oh really, I think you will find that I can and that I already have done so, Naruto declared. Hinata felt herself shiver at his words and had no clue what would happen to her now, and what he had in store for her or them for that matter. The room began to spin around her as her whole body felt drained and weak, making her fall into darkness as his words echoed repeatedly within her. In between the borders, fire and wind country. The small fox summon named Kai, had arrived in a very small village between the borders of wind and fire country. His senses flared, honing on the particular scent he was after. A few short minutes passed, and he had found the scent he was searching for. Turning into an alley, the small fox took on a human form, turning into a man with red hair and deep blue eyes. His cheeks had 2 lines across each of them as he walked down the virtually empty streets that had only a handful of people out and about. Kai came to a building that smelt of smoke and lots of liquor as well as other smells. Mainly cheap perfume and mating. It was a small tavern, which didn't surprise Kai in the least. This wasn't the first time his master had sent him in search of the toad Jiraiya. Sighing, he opened the tavern's heavy door, stepping into the room filled with second-hand smoke and stale alcohol mixed with various perfumes that made him want to gag. The room was not busy. Only a few people sat down drinking their alcoholic drinks, talking amongst themselves as he walked past them, not taking particularly any notice of them. He followed the distinctive scent into another part of the tavern. A voice called out, stopping him in his tracks. "You there? Someone has paid handsomely to use that room and has asked not to be disturbed," the owner stated calmly, wiping one of the washed glasses with a dry cloth. "I know who it is and I need to speak with him at the utmost urgency by order of my master," Lord Kubikai replied. The sound of shattered glass could be heard as the owner dropped the glass he was drying upon the floor, smashing into many pieces. "Oh, of course, please Jigo are right ahead," the owner replied nervously, his face flushed with perspiration. Kai smirked as he opened the door, hearing female moans come from inside, which in turn made the fox summon roll his eyes. Jiraiya was sat down with a female cat demon upon his lap, where she was clearly going up and down upon his hard cock, moaning loudly in pleasure. Jiraiya was presently kissing heatedly a wolf demon as he was groping her large. The smell of sex and arousal filled the air as Kai took in the familiar scene. This happened each and every time he was sent to find the toad demon, and was no longer shocked anymore. The kiss broke as the female wolf moaned before Jiraiya turned to look at the familiar face of Kai standing, watching him. "What brings you here, Kai?" Jiraiya asked with a raised brow, still fully enjoying himself. "Lord Naruto has asked me to inform you that he requires your presence as soon as possible, Lord Jiraiya." A moan escaped as he chuckled, taking in the news. He hadn't seen Naruto for a few months and wondered what had happened for him to be summoned. "What does my godson want, Kai?" "It is regarding the snake Orochimaru, Lord Jiraiya," Kai replied. Jiraiya's pleasured face disappeared as the cat demon orgasmed on top of him, collapsing into his chest as he took the news in. "Fine, I will leave very shortly, just give me a few minutes to say my goodbyes," Jiraiya answered. Kai nodded as he turned away from the elder white-haired toad demon finishing his apparent orgy. He quickly turned and left out of the room, closing the door firmly behind him, and took a seat outside as he waited for him to finish up. "Why is it I always seem to be chosen to find the pervert?" Kai moaned inwardly. Naruto watched as the object of his desires fell to the floor unconscious. Within a blink of an eye he was beside her, checking her over. The blonde carefully picked her up within his arms as Sasuke was stood behind him. His blue eyes locked with dark ones before he once again turned to look at the blue-haired beauty sleeping in his arms. "It looks like she fainted, Lord Dobe." "Seems so, team. I want you to notify everyone that there will be a meeting and I want everyone present," Naruto ordered. "Sure, what about the girl?" Sasuke asked. "I'm taking her to my room where she will be staying in from now on. If you see Ino, send her to me immediately," Naruto stated calmly. "Very well," Sasuke replied, vanishing within seconds. Naruto glanced back at the girl in his arms. Her beautiful face looked peaceful. He knew that he had revealed to her a lot that had probably startled her. It was a lot to take in so suddenly, but the blonde demon didn't care. His urges were growing in strength, and he had to act fast whilst he could. He couldn't wait any longer. He felt calmer knowing he had placed his seal upon her. Even though he detested humans, he wouldn't have given either Hinata or her cousin to Orochimaru, so he did lie to her there. Naruto knew what the snake got up to behind the scenes. He had seen the many victims of his crimes suffer and be killed by his slimy hands, as well as his sidekick Kabuto. The sick four-eyed bastard licked the ground his master walked on. It made Naruto sick just seeing him run through fire for the sick snake. Although he was one of the great 9 demons within this world, he wanted to be there for those who were precious to him. He would protect them with every ounce of power he had. The war had taken its toll on all of them. Each of them had seen many horrors that still affected each of them to this day, and he would make sure that everyone within his lands would remain protected. Hopefully both his summons would have located Hiruzen and Jiraiya and be on their way there to discuss what to do next. He didn't just have Orochimaru to worry about, he also had the demons from the village of Suna inching their way into his lands to invade. Elsewhere, Hyuuga felt sick as she entered the room, seeing her teammates laughing and talking about their conquests. They were to be given their mission by Orochimaru. The mission, by the looks of it, would be a tough one. Hyuuga had been ordered to get her team and to reconvene with them back at the throne room to receive details of their impending mission. Hyuuga had wondered why the snake wanted the girl and shivered internally at what she inwardly gathered he wanted her for. The rooms she passed all had screams of terror from the many prisoners that were cramped in cells, tagged and being assessed to see what they would do with them. The women from their mid-teens to early 30s were segregated from any of their children or members of their family, and the few males they had captured. The children would be assessed for experimentation as well as the few males that were unlucky enough to be captured. Anyone older that wouldn't be useful were either experimented on or killed. The latter was a welcomed escape to the horrors this fortress held within its grim, dark walls. To Hyuuga it was a living nightmare. She welcomed death daily but never managed to be that lucky enough to have her wish fulfilled. Her team was a group of mainly males that were selected by Orochimaru himself. She was the only female on the team. Each of them had been prisoners of the snake demon. All had been experimented on and given new enhancements to their own demonic powers. All of them had to fight each other to survive against the others that they had to survive with. Those that had won were selected as Orochimaru's personal bodyguards and selected to take part on certain missions, ranging from assassination, infiltration, also invasion, as well as anything else the snake demon wanted. They were known as the Sound Six. Their leader was Kimimaro, who had defeated each of them to take the position of leader. Kimimaro was the last living survivor of the Kagaya clan line. The rest of his clan was annihilated when fighting other demons in Kirigakure. He had pale skin, with vivid green eyes, and masculine facial features. He had 2 scarlet-red-colored dots on his forehead, which all the members of his clan possessed. He had shoulder-length white hair, which he wore divided down the middle on his head, with 2 separate partings on either side of his face. He wore a light lavender, long-sleeved, loose-fitting zip-up shirt, black pants cut off around mid-calf, bandages wrapped around his ankles. A purple rope-like belt tied in an inverted bow around the waist. He also wore 2 red, tube-like hair ornaments, one on either side of his head. The other members were Jirobo. He was the tallest of the team. Jirobo was a large and imposing demon, towering over the rest of his teammates. He had fair skin and narrowed, slanted orange-colored eyes, usually depicted with a stern look on his face. Jirobo had 3 tufts of orange hair on his head and a mohawk of sorts that ran down the middle and 2 similar styled tufts of hair at the side. He wore a beige-colored, sleeveless tunic with the symbol of their team on the hem, and a pair of black 3/4 length pants that stopped just below his knees. He wore black arm warmers and a necklace that consisted of red circular pieces, separating long metallic pieces. Like Kimimaro, he also wore a purple-like rope belt and an inverted bow around his waist. Kidamaru was a dark-skinned demon with black, shaggy hair tied into a ponytail, and had black eyes. He was the second tallest in the team, and also perverted. He always wore a confident and cocky smirk upon his face. Uniquely, he has 6 arms and an eye on his forehead that was usually kept closed and hidden under his forehead protector. His attire was a black sleeveless shirt under a sleeveless gray tunic that bore the symbol for his team on the hem, and black skin-tight shorts. He wore black armbands with calf-length leg warmers covered by bandages with a purple rope-like belt tied in an inverted bow around his waist. Sakan and his twin brother Yukon had fair skin and straight, light blue-gray hair with long bangs that covered each different eye. Their bangs were on opposite sides. Yukon's was on the left, and Sakan's was in the right. They both wore a green shade of lipstick upon their lips and had dark markings around their eyes, giving them an androgynous appearance. Like Kidamaru, they were both also perverted. Sakan always bore a smirk on his face and his head always tilted down. The twins' attire was a black shirt under a brown tunic with long sleeves that bore the symbol of their team on the hem, and black skin-tight shorts. They also wore black arm warmers with calf-length leg warmers also covered by bandages. Like the rest, they wore a purple rope-like belt with inverted bow around their waists. To help distinguish the two, Sakan wore a dark red beaded necklace around his neck and carried a giant scroll behind his back through one of the loops of his rope-like belt. While Yukon didn't have any embellishments on his uniform and had a deeper voice than his brother. And Hyuuga herself was a fair-skinned demon and very beautiful, with a slender build, and was the shortest member of the group. She had brown eyes that were accentuated by her eyelashes extending into the corners of her eyes and always sported an impassive expression on her face. Hyuuga's most distinctive feature was her long, untamed, dark pink hair that fell past her shoulders, with some long, parted bangs framing either side of her face, and one in between her eyes. Hyuuga's attire was a black shirt underneath a tan-colored tunic with elbow-length sleeves and bore the symbol of her team on the hem, and black skin-tight shorts. She also wore black arm warmers, with calf leg warmers covered in bandages, and a purple rope-like belt also tied in an inverted bow around her slim waist. To keep her wild hair out of the way, she also wore a black hat with pipe-like stripes and bandaged sides, keeping her bangs in place while the rest was pushed back behind her ears to trail down her back. "We have a mission, so get your asses moving, especially you," Fatso Hyuuga stated calmly, referring to Jiroba, who was the tallest member of the group but also the biggest. Jiroba looked at Hyuuga with a glare. The others snickered as they got their weapons ready while Hyuuga calmly walked towards hers, gathering her mission supplies as she then turned and walked back out. The others followed as their leader Kimimaro was already waiting outside Orochimaru's throne room. "I see you are all here," Kimimaro stated calmly, as he proceeded to open the large door to the room and headed inside. Everyone followed him inside and knelt on the floor in greeting as Orochimaru, who was stood looking over at some scrolls that were unraveled upon a large oak table, sensed their presence, and turned to look at them. "I see you have arrived." "Yes, my lord." "What is our mission?" Kimimaro asked, curious. "It seems that my last invasion went quite well. The last human village within Fire Country has fallen. However, the object of my desire seems to have escaped," Orochimaru informed the room. "Escaped, my lord? Who is it you are after?" Kimimaro inquired. "Yes, escaped. The one I want found is a princess, one of the last members of the Hyuuga clan," the snake replied. "What does the girl look like?" Orochimaru handed each of them a soft, small-shaped ball that he told each of them to crush in their hands. Each of them did as he asked, and a shot of slight pain filled their heads as a clear vision of who they were looking for filled their minds. Hyuuga heard Kidamaru, Sakan, and Yukon whistle and chuckle in a way that made her feel slightly sick. She opened her eyes and stared at the floor, trying to keep her feelings masked on the matter. She hated missions like this, especially of this nature. "You are to travel into Fire Country and head to the village that has fallen. A few of my men should still be there. That will be your base of operations. Kabuto will be accompanying you as your medic. The mission I am sending you on will be extremely difficult and dangerous," the snake continued with his briefing. "It should be simple to locate and retrieve her," my lord, Kimimaro stated. "Under normal circumstances perhaps, however she is currently within the Demon Lord QBSS's domain," Orochimaru announced to the team. Each of the members apart from Hyuuga's eyes widened at this bit of information. Each of them knew about the 9 great demons throughout each elemental nation. Each of them were powerful, and they contained the power of the strongest tailed beasts within them, given to them from birth by the great demon sage who had selected them. "I see," Kimimaro answered. "Do not return unless you have retrieved her. I will not take any failures from you. Do you all understand?" "Yes, Lord Orochimaru," Kimimaro answered for his team. "Kabuto, you are to travel with them and assist when needed and brief them on the others that follow the Fox Lord." "As you wish," Master Kabuto bowed. "You are dismissed." Each of the group bowed and turned to leave the room, each of them ready to begin their journey to the village that was now in their lord's hands. Sakura was sat at her desk going through a list of medicinal herbs that she would need to go in search of and gather. The Pinkette always made sure that her medical supplies were well stocked, especially with the missions and patrols around their borders getting riskier each and every time. Her green eyes glanced at Choji, who was still bandaged up and given pain relief as he slowly recovered from his wounds. Sakura knew that the dangers would increase, especially now that they had humans here that were of interest to the snake demon Orochimaru. The very thought made her shiver. She had heard a lot about him from her teacher Tsunade, who knew him well as the demon Toad Jiraiya. Sakura knew there was a lot of upcoming dangers, and according to Sasuke, each of them needed to be on full alert. Her heart clenched slightly at the thought of Sasuke. The Pinkette made no secret that she was deeply in love with the raven-haired demon. She had always felt something deep for him when they were younger. When she arrived after training for 2 years, she had come back much stronger and full of knowledge from her master regarding various medical procedures she had been taught and had mastered. When she was younger, it was always her in the middle of both Sasuke and Naruto as they fought, while she remained behind watching their backs as they mainly protected her from any potential dangers and harm that would befall her. Both were immensely stronger than her, and Sakura hated it. She felt she was the weak link, and when she found her parents and clan members brutally killed, it sent her over the edge. Naruto's parents had taken her in. For a few days she never talked to anyone. She just wanted to be alone. Then within the silence and darkness of the room she began to gather her thoughts. She remembered back to when she saw her parents each lying in a pool of their own blood, feeling shocked but entirely useless at not being able to help them, to comfort them, but most of all to heal their injuries, even if it was no use. Sakura knew back then those thoughts she had were silly, as her parents and clan members had been dead for a while, but still she couldn't shake how useless she felt and decided she had to change and train to become stronger, so she would no longer have to look at the backs of her friends as they fought to protect her. The Pinkette wanted to fight and protect them just as much. When Tsunade agreed to train her as her apprentice, Sakura was ecstatic and left with her and trained hard for 2 years away from Sasuke, Naruto, Kakashi, and the others. She had gotten stronger and learned so much under the slug princess Tsunade, that when she returned she was shocked to know that things had changed and not for the better. Shikamaru Nara had lost his parents in the war and had taken refuge with Naruto, who welcomed him in, as did Shino and Kiba, who had his elder sister Hana with him. Choji as well as Sai and Ino also came to take refuge. Then it was Sasuke that she had heard about. Naruto had confided what had happened with the Uchiha clan, which shocked her. She was more shocked with how he had been coping. Naruto had told her the truth and that Sasuke hadn't been coping too well, waking up after vicious nightmares that plagued him each and every night. Sakura had sought him out and had spoken to him, trying to be the rock he could lean on, which he finally did, showing her his vulnerability at times that she tried to mend what was broken within him. They had grown closer together through the months and Sasuke was aware of her feelings, but when they had gone to scout out a battle that had taken place, they were shocked at the scene that they found. Mutilated bodies of well-respected clans were littered throughout. The only survivor was a female human that turned out to be the demon huntress. For whatever reason, Naruto had ordered her to treat her wounds and bring her back to their home, which Sakura obeyed. At first Sakura was uncertain about her lord's decision, but she trusted him with all she had. She had nursed the female named Tenten back to health, and she was allowed to stay within their home. As the months passed, she had gotten to know each of them, and they had opened up to her quite well. Sakura liked Tenten a lot. She was a human she did respect. She fought well for a human and never refused to help them in their cause, even if it meant she had to fight her own kind. But if Sakura had to admit anything, she was jealous of her. Jealous of the fact that Tenten had managed to also gain Sasuke's attentions. Tenten was aware of them herself, as she was aware of how Sakura felt for him. They were close, but the demon huntress kept a respectable distance, and had assured the Pinkette that she would never do that to her, knowing her feelings. Sakura just couldn't be angry with her, and she couldn't be angry with Sasuke either. No demon could help it when their senses reacted to another. It was like breathing air, a natural occurrence in their kind. Sasuke was with her every night, giving each other's bodies to one another to satisfy each of their cravings. She so desperately wanted him to claim her fully and bond themselves to each other. But the raven-haired demon was reluctant to, and she knew it was due to his mixed feelings. All she could do now was wait, and hope he would finally realize that she was the one for him. Especially now that the huntress has found herself a human to enjoy and release the sexual tension she had building. The only thing since was that Sasuke, although had hidden it well from others, was in fact troubled by the fact that Tenten was with someone. Sakura could see and feel the swirling emotions he had within him that he tried to keep to himself. But Sakura knew him more than he knew himself. She had always watched him from afar. She just couldn't help it, that was how strong she felt towards him. But the jealousy he had flickering in his eyes that he tried to laugh about was clearly seen by her, which made her heart clench painfully within her. "Forehead, what are you thinking of?" A female voice spoke out. Sakura blinked as she regained her senses, seeing long blonde hair and blue eyes staring back at her. "I know. Of course it's me, Forehead, what's wrong with you?" A tick mark began to show as her eye twitched with anger at the nickname she had been given. It was always a sore point to Sakura, who was always teased as a child about it. "Can it, pig?" "Whatever, at least you're back in the land of the living. Sasuke asked me to tell you that our Lord Naruto has called us all for a meeting today." "Oh, I did suspect as much," Sakura answered. "Yes, I was on the way here to see you and he gave me the order, so I told him I would let you know. Besides, I have to go see his lordship. He wants to see me at his quarters about something or another." "I expect it's about the human girl from the Hyuuga clan," Sakura replied. "Do you really think so?" Ino asked, curious. "I do. Besides, pig, the quicker you leave the quicker you'll find out," Sakura stated in a matter-of-fact tone. Blue eyes narrowed slightly at jade green. Containing her temper, Ino sighed and brushed her long platinum blonde hair behind her as she stood straight and turned around to go to the door, but had stopped at the entrance. "You know, Forehead, if you're that worried about Sasuke-kun, then tell him how you truly feel about it. Just don't keep how you feel bottled inside," Ino softly encouraged as she disappeared, leaving the Pinkette to think on her words. Between the borders of fire and wind. The young fox summoned Kai was getting increasingly angry. He had been waiting patiently for over an hour for the perverted demon toad Jiraiya. As soon as his mission was finished, he would have words with Lord Naruto and beg him for one of his other brothers to take his place. If he had to seek out the old demon again, no way would he let any of his sisters go look for him. If they did, their innocence would surely be corrupted and he would never forgive himself. The great demon toad sage Jiraiya was a very powerful demon in his own right. His spy network that he has all over the elemental world was pivotal in this time of war. The only problem was Jiraiya was a lecherous demon, a pervert in the highest order. He himself would state that he wasn't a pervert, but a super pervert. How many times had he heard that phrase? Jiraiya didn't care whether the woman he chased or fucked were demon or human. His favorite places to peek at the naked woman was at various hot springs as he traveled. He also got to taverns like this, and sought out the many women who wanted male company for the night. This particular tavern was like the rest, specifically demon-orientated. Humans were fast becoming a dying-out breed, with only a select few scattered like the wind in certain areas. Most of them were captured by demons and turned into slaves or for women made as concubines for the demon clan heads who preferred to mate with women whether they wanted to or not. This in turn created hybrids of mixed blood human and demon. Most were looked on in disgust as bastards and kept to nurture them into future fighters, especially if they were males. The females were treated just like their mothers and sold as slaves to the demon populace, and used as whores. "Ah, there you are," Kai Jiraiya announced. "Finally, it took you more than a few minutes, my lord," Kai growled. Now, I just can't leave a woman horny like that. It wasn't fair." "TCH, whatever. Besides, my lord, we should make haste and return to Master Naruto as soon as possible," Kai stated. "And we shall, Kai. Just watch, although I doubt he will be happy as he wasn't last time." Jiraiya muttered the last bit at the end. Kai watched as the elder demon bit his thumb, doing a few quick hand signs, then placing his hand upon the floor with a surge of his immense demon energy. A loud popping sound echoed around them as the large cloud of smoke dissipated, showing an extremely large rusty red-colored toad that was as big as a building, with a brighter red around his eyes and mouth that held a smoking kizuru pipe. His tongue seemed to have a series of stud-like piercings on both the upper and lower side. He wore a large blue happy vest that had the kanji, Ebi, on the back, and carried a massive dosa blade at his hip. "Jiraiya, why have you summoned me? I still haven't forgotten about last time, you old lecher," the large toad bellowed. Now, Gamabunta, I'm sorry about last time and I swear that I will make it up to you, but I need you to take me, and Kai here, to my godson Naruto as soon as possible," Jiraiya reasoned. I don't know why I should, you pervert. However, in respect of Minato, I will do as you ask, but you had better make whatever you have for me worth my while," Gamabunta warned with a glare. "Oh, of course, when have I ever disappointed you, old friend?" Jiraiya replied. Well, are you ready?" Gamabunta queried with a raised brow. "Come on, Kai. Hop aboard," Jiraiya instructed. The young fox summoned carefully climbed on the head of the large toad as Jiraiya followed. As soon as they applied chakra to their feet and hands so not to fall off, the large toad who had begun to move, hopping over vast amounts of land heading towards Naruto's home. Ino carefully walked towards Naruto's private chambers. She had never been to this part of the large dwelling. Only a select few had been here if they had been summoned whilst their lord was resting. The blonde had been acting curiously since she had heard that 2 humans had been captured. Her mate Sai had told her what had happened when they were sent on a mission. Her childhood friend, Choji, had been injured due to the hybrids that were created by Orochimaru, and her heart filled with worry for her gentle demonic friend. Without a second thought, she had assisted Sakura in attending his wounds, that ranged from deep cuts to terrible burns around his body. He was very lucky to still be alive thanks to the quick thinking and battle experience of Kakashi, who managed to kill each of the hybrids that surrounded them. When Sakura had given the all-clear, Ino could have cried overwhelmingly in relief. The thought of losing any one of them filled her with fear. She had watched her father perish along with Shikamaru's and Choji's father that always fought side by side. It was a sort of tradition for each of their clans. Their clans were overrun and were slaughtered, only leaving handfuls to escape and to survive this harsh world they lived in. Naruto was upset to hear what had happened. His parents were still alive at the time and vowed vengeance for their fallen brethren. Ino now understood how her friend and rival felt when her parents were massacred a couple of years ago. She had tried to be there for Sakura, but they had both formed a sort of rivalry to gain affections from Sasuke. By the time Ino had decided to push the rivalry aside, Sakura had left with Tsunade to train under her for 2 years. Ino had felt immense guilt at that time, which she still carried to this day. She had changed a lot in the 2 years since losing her parents, training to fight in her clan's specialties. Her affections for Sasuke had lessened to a point that she finally understood and knew that she was not the one for the raven-haired Tengu. It seemed her heart and body were destined for another. Sai was similar in look to Sasuke, same dark hair, dark eyes, pale skin, but he had had a terrible upbringing from a young age, being a prisoner that was held captive by a cruel human lord named Danzo Shimura. His stronghold had been overrun and her father, who was alive at the time, rescued Sai and took him in. He held no emotions in fear he would be tortured, and it was up to Ino and her family to help him through it. It was a long and slow process, but he was beginning to come into his own. He still has a long way to go, but she cared so deeply for him, that when they felt the pull to each other they had finally sealed the deal and bonded with one another. The large set of doors came to her vision as she put her thoughts to one side. The blonde steadily knocked on the double doors and waited for her lord to permit her to enter. "You may enter, Ino-chan." Ino had opened the door, seeing his extremely large room. In the middle was his large bed that was covered in orange silk sheets, and a female figure sleeping soundly on top of them. Naruto was sat upon a chair to the one side, still looking down at the girl, which to Ino looked surprising. "You summoned me, my lord?" "Yes, I did, Ino. I am putting you in charge of Hinata. I will tell you now that she is very important to me as she bears my mark," Naruto confided. Ino gasped in shock at her lord's words, her mind slowly coming to terms with it. "She bears my mark upon her inner thigh. I have marked her as my future intended mate. I will announce it to the rest of the group in the meeting, as well as devising plans for any invasions that I know are coming our way. Jiraiya and Hiruzen should be here shortly, and I need to be there for their arrival. I'm trusting you, Ino, to look out for her. Can you do this for me?" "Oh, of course, my lord, you know I will. I'm just surprised by your news. That's all?" "I know this is the princess of the Hyuuga clan, one of the oldest human clans next to ours. I initiated her not too long ago, and she has reacted to me, although confusedly on her part. I have told her, though, which I feel has resulted in her falling unconscious." "I understand, my lord. I want you to provide her with clothing, and make her stay as comfortable as possible. However, she is to remain here within my chambers until I state otherwise. Your main job is to remain beside her until I return. I will leave a summon to assist you in the meantime," Naruto continued. Ino nodded as she watched Naruto perform quick hand signs and place his hand upon his floor. A circle of black symbols appeared that glowed red for seconds, producing a small puff of white smoke, revealing a small red fox that appeared to be a vixen. "Kisa, you are to remain here beside Ino and Hinata and watch over them both. Any sign of intruders, you are to use all means necessary to protect them both. Do you understand?" "I do, my lord," Kisa answered softly. "Good, I must get ready to receive our guests," Naruto stated, running his fingers softly down Hinata's sleeping face, looking at her with a look Ino had never witnessed on him before. Naruto sighed as he disappeared in a red and yellow flash as Ino blinked to get her head around what he had revealed and what she had just seen. A small smile graced her perfectly formed lips at the action. Taking a seat upon the chair Naruto had been sitting on, the beautiful blonde waited patiently for the human girl to wake. Naruto had appeared within his throne room. Sasuke along with Shikamaru were already waiting for him. Naruto could tell by the lazy smirk upon the shadow demon's lips that Sasuke had informed him of what had taken place. Naruto narrowed his eyes slightly at the pair as he walked to his throne and took a seat. "Did you inform everyone?" "I informed Ino to notify Sakura and Kakashi to inform Tenten," Sasuke answered. Naruto raised his eyebrow at the answer but didn't comment on it further, at least for now, that is. He could feel the pull on his chakra informing him that the summons he had sent out earlier were on their way back to him. The room began to fill with his friends and surrogate family as they talked amongst themselves whilst they waited. Tenten had arrived looking radiant and refreshed with the human. Niji nervously stood beside her. He had a mark on his arm that belonged to her, notifying his status to the entire room full of demons, who all looked down curiously as the last of them entered inside. "I have gathered you all here to talk about a few things that will be happening in the coming days and weeks. I also want to make an announcement as well, but firstly I am waiting for Lord Hiruzen and Lord Jiraiya to arrive, which by the feel of it will be any time now." Naruto addressed the entire room. A large puff of smoke appeared in the room, showing the small fox summons Kira, along with 3 members of the Sarutobi clan. The elder was Hiruzen. He had been extremely close to Naruto's father, and was a surrogate grandfather to Naruto. Besides him, was his eldest son Asuma, and his grandson Konohamaru. Naruto and the young monkey demon exclaimed in excitement at seeing his surrogate brother. "Greetings, Lord Hiruzen, Asuma, and you too, Konohamaru. I'm thankful you came to my summons so quickly," Naruto stated. Hiruzen chuckled, taking a puff on his pipe as he walked casually over to the blonde. "Of course I would come. You should know by now that I care for you as if you are my own," Hiruzen replied fondly. "Thank you, Gigi. I am just waiting on Jiraiya to arrive with Kai," Naruto explained, as Hiruzen nodded. The whole room began to shake as the sounds were loud from outside. Everyone got ready for any impending danger as Naruto flashed outside his home, followed by Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Kakashi. Each of them relaxed as they saw a familiar large toad leap closer towards them, coming to a stop a few meters away. "Greetings, Chief Toad. Long time no see, my friend," Naruto greeted with a small smile. "Same to you, my young henchman. My 2 sons have been missing your visits," Gambunta replied. I know, Chief. Tell them both that they are most welcome to visit my home, and please tell Gamatsu that I will have his treats ready when he does. You are always welcome, Chief, you know that, Naruto answered. I do, and I will visit soon when this old pervert summons me, Gamabunta replied with a glare at the white-haired demon. Erosenin, about time you arrived, Naruto responded with his arms crossed. Forgive our late arrival, my lord. I was waiting on Lord Jiraiya to finish his activities, Kai stated as he returned into his fox form. I understand, Kai. Kira is already inside. Please go and join her. I wish to get this meeting underway. You too, Erosenin, Naruto ordered. I wish you would stop calling me that, Jiraiya growled. But it suits you, besides that's what you do most of the time, Naruto answered with a smirk as the others around him laughed, including a large deep chuckle from Gamabunta himself. Please rest, Chief Toad. I will make sure some sake is brought for you, as you must be tired, Naruto announced, making a few clones of himself to get refreshments. You see, Jiraiya, that's how I should be treated. With respect, Gamabunta pointed out as Jiraiya grumbled under his breath and followed the others inside. They had been traveling non-stop as they reached the remainders of the last human stronghold in the Land of Fire. A few of Orochimaru's guards patrolled the area, as others